Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Market Open. I cannot be too loud today because we are in a different hotel, and I think the walls are rather thin in this hotel. So I'm going to make sure I kind of protect myself a little bit and not wake up everybody at 5:47 in the morning. But good morning. Thank you all for being here. Sorry you missed the Market Open yesterday. Honestly, I think the exhaustion after the first Monday and Tuesday in Vegas just caught up to me, and that extra hour and 30 minutes of sleep. I woke up at 9:30 or 6:30 this time. I was like, oh yeah, there was just no way I was going to be able to wake up early. But we're here. We're live. Thank you everyone for being here. Yes, Davis is here too. I know it. I know what it looks like. There's not much I can say to justify it, but yes, he's here as well. But no, we had to leave hotels because the hotel stay that we had ended on Wednesday. And so that's actually, why the reason the market closed was it was a technical mistake I made. I thought we had an extra day when we didn't. So we had to go back and check out. Otherwise, we would have been on time yesterday for the market close and we would have actually covered like all the stories and stuff. We ended up being 30 minutes late because I completely forgot we had to check out. So it is what it is. That's what happened. But we're here. I wish you were quiet. This didn't like this every single day. That's hilarious. All right, yeah, we're here. It's tough to be kind of quiet because like it feels like the energy is down, but also I'm like, I do not want people waking up and calling the front desk and be like, why is there someone yelling in this room? So anyway, we got a lot to talk about. Nvidia event is officially done. I'm sure there's a lot we'll recap for the Nvidia event. It was pretty, I mean, to say the least, it was pretty convincing for anyone who was thinking of, hey, let me trim some of my Nvidia at a certain price target. Even Stock Talk, who was on yesterday on the market close, even he's not the most bullish Nvidia. I mean, he sees a lot of alpha and other names outside of a company that's worth $4.5 trillion. Even he's like, dude, if you've got an Nvidia position, it's just tough to bet against what Jensen said over the past couple of days. So we'll talk a lot about Nvidia. Obviously, Nvidia is at the heart of the AI revolution and determines a lot of the progress on some of these AI names. Over the past couple of days, we had a high beta rally. Yesterday was the first moment we saw that high beta crack. And really last night, if you were up around 10, 11 o'clock, which is 1, 2 a.m. Eastern, you saw Bitcoin crack, which from 94 to 89, there's your $5,000 candle in about 24 hours. Ethereum, that's down from 33 to 3,000. S&P hit 693 yesterday. Basically 694, 693, 96. I didn't even realize until the end of the day that we got past the 690s and, potentially 7 points away from 700. I mean, it could happen less than 0.5%. And then we closed below 690 at 689. Right now it's 688. So you've got a lot of weird stuff going on in the ecosystem. Nvidia's up a little bit right here. We have some China headlines. Google surpassed Apple as the most valuable company, or the second most valuable company in the world. They're at 327, up another 2% in the pre-markets after being up 2.5% yesterday. Palantir is up 2.5%. This thing was 169 a week ago. Now it's at 186. Why? Well, Trump said some stuff about defense spending that we'll talk about. That had some major implications. Lockheed Martin went down 5%, then it went up 6%, as you can see in the pre-market. I mean, just a lot of weird stuff has happened this week. Bloom Energy is up 12%. Oscar, you have ACA subsidies that likely are going to be extended. We'll talk about that. That's up 7%. But in the midst of all this, you also had a little bit of a high beta crackdown last night, and some of it's starting to come back in the pre-markets. Tesla right here is red. But again, it's a bit confusing, kind of how the market is deciding in this first week of 2026 to take the trends to either go up or down. Ondas just got, I believe, some new confirmation of a contract this morning. That's up another 9% after being down 5% yesterday. It's up 33% year to date. Nike's down 1%. You have the Supreme Court ruling. I believe that's going to happen tomorrow on tariffs. Just a lot of different variables that I think are coming in a variety of different directions. Applied Digital, that's up 6%. They absolutely demolished earnings. I mean, if Jensen's not making you bullish about the advance of data centers, the data center company earnings themselves should make you pretty damn bullish, as they beat by triple digits on the top and the bottom. So, I mean, I still don't think we have a full-on understanding of what is the start to 2026 going to look like. Is it super high beta, risk on, go to the moon? Because again, you would think it is, but then Bitcoin just lost 94 last night in a pretty disgusting way, down to 89. So it's like, okay, so I guess that's not happening. And some of these other stocks that, gapped up 20, 30% have now lost 10, 15%. But then other names like Ondas, Bloom Energy, they're still up 30% for the year. They haven't lost anything. And the Max 7 are the Max 7 outside of Google, which has done very well. Nvidia's been flat. The other names have been flat. So, yeah, I think this first week of January, which we got one more day left, has just been confusing to say the least. And we're going to have to see. We have a lot more data coming out over the next couple of days. We have jolts that we had yesterday, which I forgot we had jolts. We'll take a look at that. And we had the jobless claims this morning, which again weren't as bad as expected, which once again means we're probably not going to get the rate cut in January. But there's a lot of variables here. And I think, as Stock Talk said yesterday, there's a lot of different ways to play this market. Yeah, 11% chance for that January cut, given those jobless claims weren't that bad. Yeah, Hood, right? Like if high beta is moving up, but Hood is freaking barely holding above 115. It's just weird. Again, it like there's a lot of things you would think would be going up, like a Hood or a Tesla, if everything. And Nebius, this thing went from 89 to 103, closed above 100, got to 104, back down to 94, now at 97. Like it's just trying to find its room to navigate itself. Rocket Lab is just, I don't even know how to explain Rocket Lab. 85. I mean, my goodness. I do agree that, we've been talking about this. The SpaceX IPO probably is going to be the catalyst to keep this thing continuing to go higher. But like, this is not one of the high beta names that's showing weakness. But then you have a name like Robinhood that is showing weakness. So again, it's really, really hard to have anything conclusive here after a couple of days of 2026. But I think the conclusion so far is no one really knows what the trend looks like. And you probably shouldn't in a week. But there are a lot of different ways to play this market right now. And I think the market's giving you a lot of different opportunities to play this way. I think there's too much downside at this point. Yeah, I think a lot of these names, it's hard to put net new capital into because there might be a lot of different downside that we're not anticipating. But then again, if these names are just going higher, maybe there is an opportunity cost of not being long these names. So it's confusing, to say the least. And we'll try to look at some macro headlines today and stories to try to hopefully help clear up some of the confusion that we got going on. So we got a lot to talk about. Again, good morning. Good morning. Thank you for being here. This hotel is definitely different from the previous hotel we were at. I know it looks like a motel. It's not a motel. It's definitely cheaper than the last hotel, though. So, yeah, this is the background that we have today. We did get to ask Jensen a question. I'll probably talk about this later at the end of the market close. I know that this was at the market open, where we will not be having a market close today. Let me just say that right now. We're not doing a market close today. But we are here for the market open. This was super cool. It was awesome. It was a dope moment. There's actually a backstory on how this question even happened. And I think there's like in my opinion, a real big sort of like moral of the story life lesson for how this question even got to be into fruition. So yeah, we'll talk about it towards the end of the stream, but I appreciate everyone reaching out. It was cool. Jensen, again, his aura is a different level of aura, and he's one of the smartest people on the planet, and there is some pressure in asking the question. If you guys watched the video, he interrupted me a couple times during the question, and it was an interruption that made it more of a friendly, formal kind of like back and forth versus just a pure interviewer or press journalist asking a question and then him answering, which made it just really fun. And I don't know, I think the question was relatively, I think, strong. I mean, like, and I'll tell the story on the question later, but my thing is like everyone in that press event was asking about the H200s in China and like Taiwan and TSMC and all these questions where he has to give a politically correct answer. He's not going to freaking, say something that's going to piss off any part of the administration. And then B, he was saying the same stuff they already said in their financial analyst Q&A, which is that, yeah, we see more upside from the 500 billion number that we guided, or yes, we will start delivering the chips to China as soon as China says we can deliver. It's like there's no like meaningful alpha in anything he was saying because they've already said it. So I was like, look, if I get to ask a question, which I don't even know I would get a chance, but like literally in the last 10 minutes I got the chance, I'm going to ask something that I think is more personal, which is just how do you deal with the pressure of managing the company given how many retail investors own the stock. And he kind of embraced that question by acknowledging how many retail investors have done well being in Nvidia. And I thought, given my brand as a retail investor, that was kind of a perfect question. So it was a question I thought of in about an hour because I didn't have a question going into it. I really didn't think I would get a question, but thankfully I got it. And so it was super cool. And that's how that happened. So we'll talk more about that towards the end of the market open, but it was a really, really cool thing. My mom freaked out for sure. I'm pretty sure everyone in India knows that I asked Jensen a question now just from the WhatsApp group chat, but it was pretty fun. It was pretty fun. Imagine watching a bit for the first time today. Yeah, imagine that happening. How could you get to attend the Nvidia conference? So me, Jose, Tanner, they reached out, right? So I'm sure they've seen our content covering the company online, social media, X, YouTube. This is what most companies are doing. Most companies are realizing you need to pay attention to the people that have a following towards retail investors, just to get them to, because Nvidia is a more complicated company than people think. And I have a bunch of interviews that I'll be posting over the next coming days, but the level of technology that needs to be communicated, forget the stock, forget the financials, just like the actual, like, what are we what is Vera Rubin? Like, what's the point of it? Why do they need a new GPU architecture? Like, that stuff needs to be explained in an easy, digestible way. And, if you can get the information to the people that are covering the company every day, it's important. And I think Zeta's been recognizing this. Obviously, Palantir recognized this. Hood recognized this a long time ago. Zeta has had a good week. We'll talk about that. $23 right now in the pre-market. But it seems like that is the new way for a lot of companies to get people's attention. So there we go. What happened to the hotel room? We ran out of money for the last one, so we had to get a cheaper one. Why did you say currently right? Dude, I was shaking, bro. I'll tell the full story later. But and then when he interrupted me, it made me feel more at home, because it was just like him, like being very friendly. Like it wasn't. And then he interrupted me again, and I was like, okay, I got to maneuver this. But I was definitely shaking, bro. My heart was beating. I didn't think of the currently right now at that moment. That would have been funny though. All right, so let's get into it. I think let's just start off with Nvidia. We got a headline this morning on Nvidia and China again. So when we were at the press event, Jensen was asked many questions about this, and he basically said, whenever China's ready, we will go through the logistics. I mean, we're already going through the sort of like process of getting the chips to go there. Now we just need like China to officially say yes. This morning, apparently, China is preparing to approve some Nvidia H200 imports as soon as this quarter for select government use, while barring military-sensitive government and critical infrastructure. Reports also say Nvidia is asking Chinese buyers for full upfront payment. Now, this is not necessarily contradictory with the claims earlier this week, but there is some tension here, right? Because there were some claims that China is stopping their big tech companies from buying, and there were other claims that Alibaba and Tencent want to buy. I mean, like, there's a lot of different back and forth. I think from what I got out of Jensen at the Q&A yesterday was that they are absolutely ready to send the chips. They have already informed TSMC to keep building more inventory for H200s. They have 700,000. They're trying to get to 2 million. They just need the literal final approval. And I guess they're going to get that final approval based on this report this morning. But the reason I think the stock is missed, like a lot of people have been saying amid all these announcements, Vera Rubin, they're competing with Tesla, this and that. Like, why is the stock not moving? Well, I think it goes to two things. Number one, it's a $4.5 trillion company. And once again, the street wants to see more and more proof for them to believe that they should be able to continue increasing the multiple. Although, I mean, I think Jensen has given enough, which was kind of the point of my question, right? It was just like, hey, like, what more? How does it feel to have this much pressure to keep proving it? And Jensen was like, look, we have to keep bringing everyone along on the journey. We have to empower the industry, which theoretically gets the entire street to recognize why this is so important in general. And we have to keep beating and raising the quarter. And when he said that, I think he's implying that we have to keep pushing the boundaries of proving to people that this is real. So at its core, if Vera Rubin starts to show the impacts from a sales perspective that Jensen is saying it will, I think that's when the street will give them the multiple. I don't know if the street's going to do it on the expectation. That's the difference. And so every time you get a conflicting report out of China with you're going to get the H200s, not get the H200s, the street's just like, dude, like, we need to see the numbers. Like, the numbers are already really good, but we need to really see if these guys are going to get another couple billion from China revenue, if these guys are going to continue to scale Vera Rubin into full production in 2026 or the second half of 2026, as Jensen is saying. And right now, the street doesn't fully believe it, because if they did believe it, the stock would be $240 easily. They don't. And so if you're an Nvidia shareholder, you have to trust Jensen here. But if you trust Jensen, and it's kind of hard not to, eventually it will happen. And when it does happen, it becomes inevitable that the street realizes, okay, yeah, this thing needs to go higher. And I think that's the patience, I guess, that is required. But maybe the alpha will not be there compared to like a Bloom Energy that's up 10% every other day, just given it's a different sector. And it's obviously much smaller market cap that could have a lot more beta towards it. Google right here is up 1.5%. Why did Google go up yesterday? Does anyone know? Because I didn't really see the Google headline. Amazon finally got a breakout above 240, although it closed below 240. Right now it's back at 243. So thankfully we're seeing Amazon get some love here, which is very nice. I think that's also helped the S&P along with Google. Google got upgraded today by Cantor Fitzgerald to 370. I think yesterday they had another upgrade. Gemini, some reports yesterday, is picking up traffic against ChatGPT. Google AI traffic grows. Yeah, that's the main thing you guys were saying. Silver, once again, down 5%. Why not? Yeah, I don't see a major move or reason for Google, but I guess it's Google. And it's some of the more Mag 7 now are starting to participate in this rally, which is nice, showing that it's a little bit more broadened out. But you got Google up 2% right there. Silver, once again, silver's been stuck between like 70 and 75, down another 5% right here. Gold as well, down 0.63% as well. Maybe it's this. ChatGPT recorded the largest month-over-month drop in traffic in December 2025 since July 2023. Wow. The first time in 2 years with consecutive months of declining traffic. I think that's our headline, folks. I think that's it. I mean, that's a little ugly stat. Now, obviously, ChatGPT can't keep growing the way they've been growing, but they're priced to keep growing the way they're growing. So if they stop showing that traffic, and again, ChatGPT has nothing other than user growth. Their enterprise business is good, but it's like a peanut compared to Google's enterprise business. And if they want to get to a couple billion users, they have to keep that growing month over month. There's a report this morning that from Reuters that said ChatGPT is confirming that they're going to spend 1.4 trillion on data center spend. I mean, if they're spending that much, they obviously believe the traffic will be there. But if it's not, then maybe it's going to Mr. Googs. So that's getting some momentum as well. Now, let's talk about what happened with Trump yesterday, and then we'll get into some of the other macro headlines. First of all, jobless claims, by the way, for those that missed it, 208,000 versus 212 expected. So once again, jobs claims are just not at recessionary levels, which although people are scared of this market in terms of kind of how everything is running up, I think two things. I think one, it might be a delayed Santa Claus rally. I mean, that might be one thing that's happening. Two, again, as we talked about yesterday, people might have just woken up in the morning on January 1st and said, I am buying data centers, I'm buying energy, and I'm buying semiconductors, because those three trends are not slowing down. And maybe a lot of institutional money just said, we missed it last year, we cannot miss it this year, let's plow some money in. It's hard for me to believe that's all retail. Retail woke up on January 1st and said, boom, we're just going to keep the high beta party going. Like, I think you need some bigger money there. So maybe that's part of the reason. But then the other reason the rally could be happening is because these jobless claim numbers are not recessionary. And if you don't see a recession on the horizon, and you got the midterms and the Republicans that are going to be printing more money and the tax rebates, it's like, all right, the show goes on. And if we get a rate cut, I mean, asset prices should benefit from that. So I think these jobs claim numbers are once again conducive to the level of momentum we've seen in the market. I mean, you got people that are sharing posts of their year-to-dates up 20, 30%. I mean, it's not normal. And I think everyone's acknowledging that it's not normal. Like, everyone's doing a good job being like, yeah, it's probably not normal. It's too early to tell. But I don't remember 2025 starting with everyone up 20, 30%. Like that, I do not think that happened. So it is a different way to start off the year, but it also might mean that a lot of those stocks that were depressed for the past 2 months are getting some love. Okay, so what did Trump say yesterday? The first thing he said was that defense contractors cannot buy back their stock. Okay, he said that, and then Lockheed Martin took an absolute dump because Lockheed Martin and Raytheon buy back a lot of their stock. That's kind of how they continue to deliver shareholder returns, because they don't necessarily grow that much. And then you can see this V shape on Lockheed Martin. After hours, Trump says the U.S. military budget should be raised from 1 trillion to 1.5 trillion. My theory on this, which is very basic, and I don't know, I think it kind of makes sense, but maybe it doesn't, is that Trump said defense contractors need to slow their roll and, actually deliver good for the country, not just for shareholders. Which, look, if you're a defense contractor and all your money is coming from the country, aka the country's government, then yeah, I mean, like, I philosophically, I agree with Trump that, like, screw the buybacks, like, prove that your equipment is valuable to the United States if we're going to subsidize all the research that you're doing to build all this product. And then I think an hour later, he got a call from some of the people at Lockheed Martin and Raytheon and Northrop Grumman, and they said, hey, Donnie T, you think you run the world, but you don't really run the world. And you got to fix what you just did. And then 30 minutes later, an hour later, Trump's like, by the way, although the defense contractors can't really buy back their stock, which would hurt their stock price, I'm going to pledge to give $500 billion more to the defense contractors. And the market's like, oh, cool. So even though they can't buy back their stock, they're going to get tens of billions of dollars or more in contracts. So we should buy their stock. And then the stock is up 6%, as you're seeing with Lockheed Martin in the pre-market. Like, Lockheed Martin is not a stock that goes up or down 5%. It's supposed to be a relatively stable stock. And it's done a 15% swing in the past 24 hours. Now, that's my conspiracy theory on it. Maybe the other theory, I was talking to someone else last night, and they said that Trump wants to prove that what we did in Venezuela, we can do in Greenland and Cuba and Colombia. And that's why we need to beef up the military to prove to the world that we have such a strong military that there's no way that we're not going to be able to take over all these other countries. And maybe that's his argument for why he increased the defense money. It's just very peculiar. The timing of it came after the defense stocks tanked. And it's almost like Trump wanted to make sure they didn't tank by issuing more defense spend, which, by the way, I don't know how the hell he's going to get congressional approval to spend another 500. We don't have the 500 billion. But again, this is the stuff that makes me want to DCA into Bitcoin every week and just be like, this entire game is stupid. Like, we don't have this 500 billion. Where are we going to get this 500 billion? Like, where are we going to take it from? We're not going to take it from healthcare. We're not going to take it from education. We're going to print more of it. And if we're going to have to print more of it, then obviously the value of the dollar should continue to be debased. Now, granted, I don't think we're going to actually increase it by 500, but he needs the power of the purse to make that happen. He himself, on an executive order, cannot spend 500 billion extra dollars. But if he were to convince the Democrats and Republicans, now if the Democrats win the midterms, they're probably not going to agree to that, because they don't want to give him that win. But I don't think this headline even makes sense. So Palantir was pumping after hours. Again, I love Palantir, but I don't think we're going to get an extra $500 billion of defense spend. If we do, very bullish Palantir, which is why the market immediately reacted and Palantir was up. And Palantir's still up, and the pre-market's up 2.4%. Do I actually believe that's going to happen? I think that's very hard to imagine we're going to spend that much more on defense, especially when, we're not literally in a world war right now. But I don't know, maybe we end up being in one. So if that goes through, or the perception of that continues to be at its pace, then yes, Palantir, Lockheed Martin, all those stocks get momentum. If not, then I don't know, maybe they retrace a little bit, but then again, Palantir's kind of already been at these levels even without that announcement. So it might not be the announcement that necessarily takes it down. But again, 2026 starting off just kind of weird with how a lot of these things have been playing out from the Trump administration, how they've been. Yeah, and here's the thing. So apparently tomorrow is going to be the Supreme Court day of reckoning for this tariff policy. Some people are saying it's not actually coming out, but I'm seeing a lot of other sources saying tomorrow at around 1 p.m.-ish, the news will come out. I don't know if we're going to get in the market open. It would be nice because we would really see the implication of it. But what if Trump crashes out if his policy is overturned? Like, what if he just straight crashes out? What if he's just like, yeah, I'm doing whatever I want now that the Supreme Court rejected my staple foreign policy tariff? Like, I don't know. Does it create a lot of instability? Does it actually pump Nike because the tariffs are gone? Does it pump the whole market? Does Trump like that it pumps the market and maybe he doesn't care? Maybe he just switches his mind. It's like, oh, the market's up. Like, we don't need the tariffs. Like, who knows how this is going to play out? But that is part of the variables that I think is going to be affecting the broader landscape of how to play 2026. Amcor right there, down about 1% of the pre-market. OSS up another 12.8%. They got a contract yesterday for a military prototype last night. That contract got them some momentum. That stock continuing to get some momentum in the pre-markets. Micron hit 346 yesterday. They got upgraded by JP Morgan to 400 this morning. I mean, the memory stocks continue to show the party goes on. Where's SanDisk? That stock is just unbelievable. Year to date, it is up 44%. It's up 47% in the past 5 days. Like, either this is just the greatest opportunity for memory that we've seen in the history of memory companies. Jensen did talk a lot about memories at Nvidia and HBM and the necessity for them to build that into their architecture. Or this is too much too soon. It's not real. And, there's going to be a little bit of reckoning for these names. I don't know. Because every time you say that, the earnings are going to be there. And if the earnings are going to be there, even if the multiple is aggressive, if the earnings are not there, these stocks can hit. But for a lot of these names, the earnings are actually there. Like, even though they're high beta, they are putting up earnings. Like, even Bloom Energy got that Quanta deal, $520 million. Maybe you can disagree with the valuation based on factoring into that deal, but there is real money coming in. And if that money starts to translate into net profits, which it'll take some time, but if it does and the trajectory is there, I mean, these stocks probably will get the benefit of the doubt. So I think that's another kind of core element of how this year is playing out. Let's listen to Tom Lee. He was live yesterday, and here is what he's thinking for 2026. He is continuing on this thesis that a mid-year drawdown of 20% is likely.
It's a hint for how markets are shaping up for the year. Our base case was a rally, maybe to start the year, and then a big correction, and then a rally at the end.
Big correction, if not a bear market.
I think
those are your words, not mine.
Yeah, I think there'll be a point this year where it's going to feel like a bear market.
Yeah. What about the way that the market looks as the year has begun? What do you make of it?
I think it's encouraging because we have some breadth, right? Energy materials are doing well. The Mag 7's catching a bit and crypto's doing well, but healthcare's strong, financials, industrials are strong, and small caps. I mean, it's sort of a broad market.
I mean, almost want to say an everything rally. It's not like tech is doing terrible. It's just being overshadowed by some of these other moves. The equal weight S&P ETF is coming off a fresh record high of its own. That says everything about what's driven this market.
That's right. I think for investors and for institutional investors, breadth being good is always a good sign, actually.
Is it sustainable? Is this the way it's going to look for a little while?
Well, I do think there's a couple of sort of macro tailwinds that should help stocks. One is I do think that the economic clarity is better because the tariff disruption is more in the rearview mirror, even though we could get that overturned. But in general, tariffs aren't going up. They could be flat or down. And the second is the Fed is really turning into a tailwind because the Fed is leaning dovish. They're focused on the job market. QT is over. We have a new Fed coming. And so all of these are in some ways, I think, and they're not fighting inflation anymore, a put for the equity market.
What happens if SCOTUS strikes down the tariffs? Is that a positive or negative for the market?
It's a source of confusion. It's going to depend on how they word their decision because, there may be refunds involved and claims. And of course, we know the White House will seek to re-implement the tariffs. But I think on balance, it means that we put a ceiling on the tariffs, that they aren't going to be higher, but there's a chance they're lower. That's a net positive.
I mean, there could be, I was going to use, you use the word confusion. I was going to use a little chaotic. I mean, it could be in the immediate aftermath of that and trying to figure out if, you have to start giving refunds to people and then you wonder what the bond market may do. So there are a lot of things to consider as we could get this as early as potentially the end of the week.
That's right. Now, some investment firms have already been buying refund claims. They're offering to buy these claims from companies at 30 cents on the dollar. So in some ways, the economy is pricing in some of these refunds.
So kind of the same core argument by Mr. Tom Lee around this idea of being macro bullish, like long-term broad bullish, but short-term, like he thinks there's this big ass drawdown coming, which once again, if there's a big ass drawdown coming, like, wouldn't you be scared? Wouldn't you not buy BM&R? Wouldn't you sell your stock? Like, so the positioning of it is a little confusing, but even based on the comments I'm seeing in the chat and based on the comments I think I saw last night on that video, sentiment is flipped on Tom Lee. I'm sorry, but sentiment has flipped. I mean, usually when we used to play him, universal praise and admiration. And now it's just like, why are we listening to this guy? And that's kind of crazy. I mean, like but then again, when the positioning of your messaging is, forget wrong, like that's not even like everyone's allowed to be wrong, but like it's confusing and contradictory in a variety of different ways. And we've covered over the past couple weeks how people feel it is, that's what pisses people off. And then obviously BM&R not working out, the back down 2%, it was down 6% yesterday. ETH not mooning. Obviously he's not allowing Bitcoin to move. Bitcoin not mooning against price targets that were at 250,000, which, I mean, I don't know if there's anyone else to blame but yourself if you're putting out that egregious of a price target and it doesn't get there, right? Because it just makes people upset if they trusted that it would get there. Yeah, that's going to piss a lot of people off. And so, I don't know. This year has a variety of different tailwinds and headwinds, but from a macro analytical perspective, I think people are finding it hard to trust some of the same characters that have been right for the past couple of years. And, now some of their positions. And again, you're allowed to be wrong. Everyone's going to be wrong. It's not about that. It's about the communication around how you're dealing with something in the context of being right or wrong. And again, I think the absurd price targets is just what really affects people. But to the core of his argument about this mid-year drawdown, that stuff is still confusing to me. Like and it was confusing to me the day he did the Scott Galloway podcast, remember? I think that was like towards the beginning of December. And I was listening to the thesis and I was like, wait, so you're saying we're going to fall to like 570 on the S&P and then we're going to go up to 7,700 from that level? That sounds like a Liberation Day 2.0. And I'm like, Liberation Day, I don't know if that's once in a generation that we get a 30% drawdown, then a 40% recovery, which is basically what happened, 37% recovery on the S&P within 6 months. Like that stuff, I don't think that happens that often. And for that to happen again, if that was the basic premise of the thesis, it's confusing to say the least. So I'm not sure exactly what broader narrative we're getting from that perspective, but I think it's going to once again continue to be a stock picker's market. And maybe Micron is enough to survive the year, even if there's a massive drawdown in between. Now, I will say a lot of the names that are pumping right now, if Tom's right that we get some 20% drawdown, those names are getting it. Like there's just no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Like they're getting hit. And Robinhood's including that, Zeta's including that, Palantir, even the Max set. If 20% on the S&P goes away, which again, I find it hard to believe, and I don't want to be like perma bullish. I'm just saying if the earnings are there, the rates are coming down, there's no recession, why do we need to erase 20% out? Like, what is that catalyst? And that's the other thing about Tom Lee. Like, does anyone know why he's calling for a mid-year drawdown? Someone help me in the chat. Why? Like, because I think out of all the stuff I've listened to, I can't explain why exactly he thinks there's going to be a drawdown. Obviously, if we had a recession or like earnings slump horribly, or maybe we have some Liberation Day 2.0, like, yeah, that could trigger it. Maybe it could happen for the hell of it happening, which the market is the market. War, okay, yeah, but see if a war breaks out, the war breaks out. I mean, I don't know if anyone can necessarily predict exactly what happened in 2022 with Russia-Ukraine. Testing the new Fed chair. But again, if inflation stays tame, which it has been, guys, inflation is not crazy. If you look at shelter inflation, we covered this a lot the past couple of weeks. Like, and then you got the labor market potentially slowing down. That also is good for inflation. So like, why do we need some 20% drawdown? Not saying we can't get it. Obviously, anything can happen. I just logically, Google right there up 2%. And if we are getting it, then everything we're seeing right now is fake. If by May, all of it's going to be erased, even if we pump 10%, we're still going to be net down 10%, which from these levels would put a Google in like the 290s right here. Buying at 330 doesn't feel good. It would put Tesla basically in the 390s, 395s-ish. Hood would get down to the hundreds. Like, so even if we go up 10%, but we still have that 20% correction, you know, it obviously could be ugly. Midterms, yeah, I mean, that's fair. Then again, I feel like there's actual macro catalysts to potentially sidestep the midterm stuff. But like, also remember, markets like gridlock. If the Democrats do win, nothing's going to get done for the next couple of years. And Trump already got the big, beautiful bill in, which is supposed to be super pro business. So it's like, if nothing gets done, I don't know if the markets are going to hate that. But obviously, midterm election, the volatility inside of midterm election naturally is something that could alter the markets. I do agree with what Stock Talk was saying yesterday, which is that we are going to get more corrections, but those corrections are going to be very mild, and their recovery is going to be stronger because there's too many tailwinds for money to come back into the markets. For us to get a 2022 type of year where people are so disgusted with stocks that they leave entirely, again, I think we need something really structural to happen there. And I don't think we necessarily have that yet. Now, obviously, AI being fake, that would be like your biggest reason, but I don't know if we necessarily see that happening either. Based on this Nvidia event, I don't think AI is fake, but obviously we got to see that into the earnings. So that's what we got in terms of some of the macro stuff. The U.S. House yesterday voted to extend the ACA subsidy bill. 9 Republicans agreed with the Democrats here. That's why this got passed. So that's why Oscar is up in the pre-markets, and maybe this helps us avoid that government shutdown, which let me see the odds on call sheet. It was 21% yesterday. We are at 26%. Okay, so a little bit more, well, 25. Nothing too crazy, but still almost a third of a chance that we get that shutdown. I don't know the exact implications of this. The subsidy thing still has to get approved in the spending bill, and it has to get approved by the Senate, which obviously the Republicans have the majority of. So even though the House ended up getting 9 Republicans to capitulate on it, I don't necessarily know if that means it will officially get extended. So that's another thing that we have to take a look at. Archer and Nvidia partnership. This came out this morning. Archer partners with Nvidia to build next-gen aviation AI. Archer to deploy Nvidia IGX Thor for aviation-grade AI computing platform enables safety-critical real-time onboard in AI. I didn't get a chance to visit the Archer booth at CES. I would have loved to, just to see what they're doing. Archer's up about 2% in the pre-market. So for those that are fans of Archer, you have a partnership with Nvidia. Cactus says this forces a vote. The Senate lead is speaking positive about the compromise. Dude, if the Senate can agree to a subsidy, extension and we can move on, yeah, that would be bullish. Or that would be very bullish to and look, if we avoid the shutdown, rates are coming down, earnings are okay. I mean, again, you just have a lot of arguments for why this market should be able to continue. Yesterday we had jolts, 7.146 million jobs that were available. A little bit lower than expected, not too crazy. Again, jobs claims this morning were not that bad either. So labor market, although it's weakening, does not feel completely destroyed, which is also a broader good thing. Yes, Ondas got the Israeli border deal this morning. That's also having that stock get some momentum. It's up 33% year to date. Drones, again, big thematic, just like space. If you're buying these names to play those themes, then, I mean, if these themes continue to work out, then obviously there's probably a lot of alpha in there as well. Kratos right there, that's up 8.29%. And again, a lot of these names might be being bought purely on the theme, but the fundamentals, when you get new contracts, really starts to legitimize those names as well. And that helps. That helps the entire industry too. When like a Red Cat or an Ondas gets those types of deals. Amcor down about 0.46%. PayPal, once again, stuck at $58. Micron's up a little bit. SanDisk up another 1.62. Oh, we didn't even talk about the housing shit Trump talked about yesterday. Okay, so let's get into that. We got 7 minutes until the market open. So Trump basically said that he's going to stop places like Blackstone and corporations from buying single-family homes, and he's going to put an end to institutional investors taking advantage of this. This is a pretty big deal, in my opinion, if he's serious about this. This is why Open Door took a hit last night as well. I don't know if Open Door necessarily like classifies as a conglomerate buying up houses. I mean, technically they do, I guess, but Blackstone was down 5% yesterday because they have a massive private equity business that is rooted in buying and selling up houses. So basically Trump said the American dream is dead and we need to deal with housing ownership being at an all-time low. The mortgage rates are not coming down, unfortunately, because the 10-year is not coming down because the market is still afraid of inflation. 10 years at 4.183. So I guess the best way to do it is to force the big companies from not being able to buy single-family homes, which, look, I think it's a good idea. I mean, like, capitalism has to have some level of an understanding that if the corporations own everything and people own nothing, I mean, there is no capitalism at that point. People have to feel like they have a chance in the game. And as soon as you let the private equity guys just buy up everything and people feel they don't have a chance, it's over, right? You just don't have the ability to have a thriving free market at that point. So I think it makes sense. Now, does he have the permission to do this or the ability to like force that Blackstone can't buy these houses? I don't know. But again, this was one of many things he just threw out there yesterday. And it's kind of like, is he just throwing stuff and seeing what sticks at the wall? It's like, we're going to increase the defense budget. You can't do buybacks if you're a defense contractor. We're going to stop companies from buying homes. Like, I don't know. Is this all in anticipation until the Supreme Court decision, which, you know, might have a variety of implications on obviously the market when it comes to tariffs. ASTS in the pre-market, that stock, I believe, is up. We are up 3%. And then Redwire, that is also up 2.85%. Again, Rocket Lab has started to normalize the 80s. I know it's been a couple days in the 80s, but if this thing can spend another week or two in the 80s, the 70s was a good buy if you bought it at 71, as it is sitting here at 85. And again, the SpaceX IPO, I think, is also going to be very instrumental to make that happen. That's going to be very bullish for rocket mortgage. Yeah, probably going to be pretty bullish for rocket companies as well. What have people been doing? We got 4 minutes until the market opens. Trading, selling, buying, calls, puts. I mean, you can put some comments in there. Are you selling calls against these names that are running like crazy? Are you taking profits here? Are you buying into strength? SoFi, absolutely annoying. I mean, 29 to 26, back to 27, now back to 26. I know it's annoying. I think they're getting set up for good earnings. I hope the stock can hold its gains. But yeah, I mean, SoFi's been weird. And even though SoFi classifies as high beta, it's not getting the type of high beta premium that a drone stock or an energy stock are getting. So, you know, there are different parts of the market that are just working better than other parts. Uzi said, I haven't made any moves since November. Lauren said, I've just been dying. Nibbling, Amazon load up, Tesla puts. Sachin says munching. Sachin, I'm with you on SoFi. I've got a position now. So let's see Jan 30th if Mr. Noto can deliver. Davis is sleeping. Bro, Davis, You know you were just snoring 5 minutes ago? Was that? Yes. It's like my voice just puts him to sleep, bro. Like, it's kind of ridiculous. You want to say hi? Again, I know what it looks like. New hotel, same guy. I get it. But sometimes you got to take a trip with your guys, bro. You got to,
It's everything you guys think of and some more. Now, how you interpret that is up to you guys. But, we're just a couple bros talking about stocks. Things go up.
Yo, last night when Bitcoin fell below 90, we were both getting the Robinhood. We were like, why the fuck is the market? We were literally, there's two bets here, by the way. So we were literally just sitting and being like, why did the market crash? It's that, it's like, it's what you do with your boys when you grow up. And this new hotel, I thought there was only gonna be one bed. So originally I was like, oh, maybe Davis, you don't have to sleep over. There's only one bed. And he was like, why not? And I was like, thankfully they gave us two queens. And I was like, all right, we're good to go. So we'll be all right. Yeah. But yeah, he fell asleep last night on the market close. You just fell asleep right now. So
you're boring. What can I say?
He says he literally puts me on and falls asleep to my voice every day. I'm like, all right, bro, whatever. But yeah, 2 minutes until the market opens. We're going to see how we end out this week. Again, got 694 on the S&P yesterday. It would be pretty nice to reclaim that and make that move back to 7,000 or up to 7,000. But also you got a lot of people thinking that it's too quick. Like we shouldn't be getting that type of move if that move is not being led by the names that theoretically should be leading it, like an Nvidia. Now, again, that's a subjective perspective because a lot of people might think these other names that are leading the rally deserve to lead it. But all we can do is kind of react to what is happening. In terms of Zeta, I think it's very positive. That's been holding above 23. Again, I am bullish on the name. I have a position. It's become a FinTwit fave. I still don't think it is the biggest opportunity in the world. I think there is a clear bull case here, if you read my Substack, just based on the valuation. But I also think that the volume has just been very impressive. And if we can close above 2250 this week, I think that would set up some momentum for Zeta. And then they got to give a good earnings. They were at CES. David Steinberg had a good talk with Dan Ives. If they deliver good earnings, I think this stock is closer to a $30 stock. But they've got to deliver. And a lot of these companies that have gotten some premium have to deliver. And if they do that, then hopefully that's strong going into the Q1 earnings cycle. All right, here we go, folks. Thank you, everybody, for being here. It is Thursday, January 8th. I'll be back home on Saturday. We'll be back in our regular routine in the studio starting next week. Thank you all for being here. 9:30 a.m. The stock market is now open. All right, wake your ass up. S&P 500, 688.94. That opens up flat on the day. ASTS up 3%. Kratos up 12%. Ondas up 11%. Palantir getting 1.74 based on that idea of defense spending going up. Amazon 243. Google 327. Zeta 2303. Nvidia 189. Nvidia opens relatively flat. Looks like it's about to go red. Robinhood 115.84. Robinhood, I think is getting hit from the Bitcoin stuff. I mean, Bitcoin was moving really heavily. Robinhood was trying to break 125, and then the Bitcoin momentum got stopped. Bitcoin right there, just below 89, just below 90,000. So that's probably what's hurting Robinhood. Bitcoin now 89.4. Bitmine, that's down because of Ethereum, 2%. Nebius got to 103 yesterday, now back at 96. Tesla, once again, at 425. My thoughts on the whole Nvidia killing Tesla thing is that it's not going to happen. But I did speak to some more people at the event yesterday. And let's just say they had a fundamentally different perspective on the Nvidia autonomous announcements that they made. And so we'll talk more about it probably next week. But there were a lot of people that were saying Tesla is going to have a hard time competing. And so I don't necessarily agree with that, but I'll share some of those perspectives. The market's obviously probably thinking that might be the case. The stock now down from 460 to 425 after that Nvidia announcement. PayPal right there, 57.97. OSS, that's up 12%. Bank of America, 55.69. SoFi, 26.79. That is down 0.5%, not moving like crazy, but you have a little bit of downside move right there. SanDisk, that goes red. Opendoor, that's up 2.3. Rocket Lab, once again, holding its move, 84.80 as that one opens up green. Tesla, again, 424 now. Goodness. Applied Digital, they had a great earnings. They beat on the top and the bottom by 100%. They're up 9%. Now, again, the stock was at these levels a month ago, right? Yeah, on December 9th, it got to 35. So it's at 32, fell all the way to 21. So if you bought at 21 up to 32, not too bad, but you are seeing a 9% move right here on a pretty damn strong earnings. And that's why it looks like that's getting some continued momentum. Netflix, this was $9.89. It is still $89.96 on Netflix. How about the Qs? The Qs are 622. That's down. Amazon got a little bit of a taste of a breakout over the past 2 days, 243. Apple has been, wow, when did Apple see 250? I feel like I haven't seen Apple since Sunday. This stock was $275 on Sunday. When the hell did it go to wow. Well, now I know why Google overtook market cap yesterday. I thought it was just like Google got to a certain price. Apple was down like 2%. Google's above it. Goodness, they're selling off Apple. No, Google's meaningfully above Apple. Apple 3.8 trillion, Google 3.9 trillion. I mean, that's not as close as it was before. Archer right there, that's up 1.3% on the partnership with Nvidia. No one likes iPhones. Okay, like, first of all, no. Everyone likes iPhones. In fact, if you don't use an iPhone, you freaking ruin the group chat by having these nonsense green bubbles. That's not the reason, but there's got to be. Why are they selling Apple? The fact that they're selling Apple means they're like, because Apple's not high beta. So it's, I guess they're like rotating aggressively into high beta if you're selling something that's super safe like Apple. Or people are looking at Apple's premium and being like, why are we paying 42 times for something that's barely growing? Now, their growth is better than it was the past couple quarters, but still, it's like, there's not that much growth there. Wow, Rocket Lab, almost 87. Almost 80 freaking 7. Let me check resistance on Rocket Lab and see 90, what that looks like. Dude, I did not expect to see Apple at that level. I really did not expect to see that. Arista, that's getting hit again. This one's been getting hit all week. Rocket Lab, $90 resistance, folks. If we just go to the next level, 80,968 shares. Call it 81,000 shares to get above that level. I switched from an iPhone to a Pixel. Why are you guys leaving Apple, bro? What did freaking Tim Cook do to you guys to leave Apple? Bloom Energy, 13%. Okay, what was the deal with Bloom today? I think there was a specific announcement that happened today. We know the Qantas stuff happened last week. Oh, 100 megawatt deal with the potential for 900 million more to be included. 2.65 billion purchase for solid oxide fuel cells, plus a 20-year offtake with a high-grade customer for 100% of output from a Wyoming fuel cell plant. And this is not even from Bloom Energy. This is from an AEP filing around this agreement. 15% up. That stock, $30 billion market cap. 87.50 on Rocket Lab. It's up 36% year to date for Bloom Energy. Thomas said, I also just switched to a Pixel. I'm married to Gemini at this point. Bro, if Google ends up getting people to leave the iPhone because of Gemini, I mean, that would be incredible. I'll believe it when I see it, but that would be incredible. Amcor right there, that's down 2%. Rocket Lab, again, making that move above 87 right here. OSS at 20%. This one, again, continuing to make the move, up 935, up 18%. Amazon 241, Applied Digital 3418. Rare earth stocks getting hit. Wow, Meta below 640. Meta and Apple getting sold off for Google. Tesla getting sold off as well. Rare earth names that had a lot of excitement over the past couple of days, they are getting, well, MP's flat, but CRML is down a little bit more. Netflix right here, 89.79. Tesla 429. Then Applied Digital 17%. I think people are seeing this as a catch-up trade to data centers right now, because this name technically hasn't necessarily been in the same bucket as Iran and CoreWeave and Nebius, but I mean, those earnings were pretty damn good. Those earnings were pretty damn good. SoFi's running. Where's SoFi? Okay, 27.16, 0.57%. That's making a move. Amazon again, 242. Rocket Lab, 88. I mean, it feels like 90 has a shot if it's this close. $2 away. 89 resistance is 8,000 shares. which again should be bad. Where's Ondas? That one was at 14% yesterday, 18%. Yeah, I mean, look, Ondas now trading at a price of sales of 192. I don't even think it matters. 5 billion market cap. How much revenue do these guys do? Ondas revenue? I think it's like a couple million. At this point, I don't think the market cares. There's 10 million, so 36 million for the year. But it's growing 600%. I mean, now granted, that probably is priced in, but it is what it is. The market does not care. Grab gets hit 2%. Do not know why. Again, this thing was at 535 2 days ago. I also don't know why it pumped to 535 though. That robotics acquisition was old news, but that got it up and now it's down. Uber once again was up yesterday when Tesla was down. Uber is down again. Amazon 242, Rocket Lab 8840. The high beta is obviously not in the Ubers or the Grabs of the world. It's in the Bloom Energies, the Rocket Labs, the OSSs, and those are the names that are getting the momentum. Now, some of the high beta that's in names like Tesla are not getting momentum, so it once again becomes a stock picker's market. Archer's up 4% on the Nvidia partnership. Palantir losing the momentum from last night, but still holding above 180, which is amazing. And then Zeta just holding below 23. Why is Meta down? I am not sure. I mean, it's had some positive headlines this year. In fact, wait, didn't Zucks yesterday say that we are stopping the production of glasses because demand is too strong? Which was kind of a weird way to frame it. But they said something like that, right? That they're stopping production because they have to like figure out their... Yeah, Meta pauses European launch of Ray-Ban AI glasses due to its high popularity, and therefore it's being delayed, which kind of seems counterintuitive because if it's very popular, maybe you buy more of it. S&P flat on the day, 688. Maybe that announcement was the reason. I don't know. APLD, that one's moving. Redwire's moving. Serve Robotics up 13%. Yeah, again, a lot of these names have been catching a bid. Look, here's the thing. Again, this is what I'll say. If you're not in something that is super high beta right now, this doesn't feel fun because you're seeing everything else run. That is something you, as an individual investor, have to come to grips with. Like, is it annoying seeing something random run like crazy or seeing a bunch of different sectors run like crazy if you're in something that's not running? Sure. But you also have to ask yourself, what's your risk tolerance, right? I mean, you can't be naive about it. If you didn't have the risk to hold on to a Serve Robotics to have a day where you wake up when it's up 11%, then you can't complain that you're in something that's not up 11% just because it's not a quote unquote robotics play. By the way, Serve Robotics is trading at a price of sales of 524. So it's like, if you didn't want to take the risk because you knew that it would be kind of tough to justify to yourself mentally, then that's the advantage of not having to deal with the volatility of high beta, but you don't get the upside either. It is what it is, right? If you didn't invest in high beta names back in 2023, you didn't get the upside of the past 2 years of them going higher. Whereas I kind of think in 2026, a lot of these fund managers were like, screw it, bro. We missed out on the semis last year. We missed out on drones. We missed out on energy. We missed out on quantum. We missed out on nuclear. We're just piling it. Now, again, fund managers have a fiduciary duty. Can they really justify to their clients buying some of these names that are trading at these multiples? Probably not. So maybe this is a trade. Or maybe this is them saying, hey, we have to do something to get alpha because we don't know if we're going to find it in Google this year because it was already up 70% last year. And as a result, a company like Rocket Lab gets the bid. And there's other thematics that are helping Rocket Lab, but that might be the reason for why it's getting some love. 89.44. I mean, it really looks like 90 is on the table for Mr. Rocket Lab. 89.71. Again, 90, I said, had 80,000 shares. And we got to see. Nate says, but I'm sure you felt good when they had 40% drawdowns from October to December. Yes, and like we cannot forget history. From October to December, all of these names took very, very, very ugly drawdowns. Right now, that's not happening. Maybe that doesn't happen. But just remember how you felt when it was happening compared to what you're feeling right now. And there's only two things you do. Either you sell and take some profits to avoid that from happening, or you don't get into those names. And it is a very personal decision, but it can't be something that's purely led by FOMO. I just think you're going to drive yourself crazy. And I don't know, I think I had that phase years ago. And like, yeah, I don't have a lot of FOMO here. Like, it would be nice to be in some of these names, but it's also just like, dude, it was hard to buy them 50% ago. It's not easy to buy them 50% up here. Not saying there's not fundamental theses attached to a lot of these names. It's just, at the end of the day, it's hard worked money that you're risking in some names that you just might not want to take the risk for. Some people do want to take the risk. That's fine. But you have to be honest with yourself about it. Rocket Lab at 90. Again, let me check the share count. I think it's 85,000 now. Yeah, 97,000. Okay, so 97,000 on the Lab of Rockets. Coinbase is up a little bit right here to break through the $90 level. What are you talking about? You're in Rocket Lab? No, I am in Rocket Lab, but I'm not buying Rocket Lab here. That's my point. I bought Rocket Lab in April when shit hit the fan. It was at $17. My average is like 26, but I'm not buying new Rocket Lab. Obviously, new people are buying Rocket Lab here at 89, which is fine. They're okay with taking that risk and they believe this thematic plays out. The question is just how much is your risk tolerance willing to partner with it? S&P 500, 687. That's down 0.3, 0.23. SoFi just lost. Dude, SoFi has got to be the best stock on the planet to sell calls on. I mean, it bumps and then it dumps, and then your calls are safe every day. 27.50 back down to 26.50. And that one continues down. IWM, where is that? 256. That's up 0.24. So the small caps are getting some love. RGC is up. Region Cell Bioscience is suspended. Did they have some FDA thing come out today? It's up 150% over the past 5 days, $28 billion market cap. Oh, no, this is a big, I know I've heard of this company before. It's a relatively large biotech. It's not a small cap. But that is green, got suspended. Oscar losing its pump. Again, Oscar pump didn't make sense in the pre-market. Like, yeah, the Senate is now forced to take a vote, but they haven't voted to extend it yet. So 7% down to 2%. It's almost like the market moves that on the headline and then reality hits where the market's like, wait a second, the headline doesn't really mean anything here. The subsidies have to be extended for Oscar to get the benefit of that. Meta continues to dump, down 2%. Redwire up 5, Kratos up 15, Bitmine down 3 again. Palantir goes red, lost its multiple from, or its earnings, or its stock price increase from yesterday. It was at 187, I think, down to 180. Zeta just below 23. Nvidia goes red. Wow. Again, just kind of weird when these names that are the biggest names in the market go red, yet some of these other names are up, especially names that are associated with Nvidia. Lunar's up. That's up 5% as well. Nvidia 187 down. Hood down 1.49. And then Amcor down 3% as well. AMD looks bad. Where is AMD? We haven't looked at it all day. Wow, wasn't this thing 225 when Lisa Su was talking? 207. See, guys, I'm just gonna be honest. This is weird. This is very freaking weird. AMD and Nvidia are phenomenal companies. I forget them being red. I don't understand how some of the names that are associated with them are green because they don't have demand unless Nvidia and AMD are pushing the AI narrative forward. And they're not just green. It's okay for some of the smaller names to be green. Obviously, it's a smaller market cap. You have to move. They are like aggressively green to the point where it's like, okay, these names are up 40%. AMD, Nvidia can't catch a bid. It's like, what's going on? Like, are these hedge funds that are buying up these stocks trading at 500 times sales and dumping Nvidia? Is that retail? Does retail even have enough energy to do something like that this early in the year? Like, it's very good. Broadcom. Why is Broadcom down 2%? Like, Broadcom is already took a beating after earnings. I mean, it doesn't have to go back to where it is, but that's going down and random stocks are going up. It's confusing to say the least. And I don't know how it ends or if that's how the party plays out for the rest of the year. Nebius right there, $100. That is also green. Probably Japan's bond market. Oh, yeah, we didn't talk about this. I'm happy you brought this up. Japan's 30-year bonds are acting like freaking new meme coins that have been issued, and they get that spike immediately. I mean, we're seeing the highest 30-year bond in history, 3.5%. But why would that mean that a stock trading at 100 times or 500 times price of sales goes up and Nvidia goes down? You would think that hurts the entire market, but it's helping high beta. which once again, it's a little confusing. And again, when high beta was running back at the end of, not the end of the year, but like in the summer, it made sense because everything had taken a dump and the earnings were good. So you were just seeing a natural recovery of everything. And then it peaked in October with the whole soybean crypto liquidation thing. But you could at least explain it. Right now, you can't explain it. I mean, or at least I don't think I have the best explanation for it. Ondas, 22% on the day. Bloom Energy, 17%. The Qs are flat. And then Netflix, 89, 88. But again, what happens when this stuff happens is a lot of FOMO. And it's not just retail FOMO, it's institutional FOMO, which is why I keep stressing on you. You have to be able to work with your own psychology when it comes to this stuff. And so do big fund managers that are like, holy crap, like I need to get some of these gains. It's like you put $100 million into some of these stocks and then they just tank in the next month in your bag holding. It's not fun. Zeta goes green, 23.19 now. Like Zeta to me is high beta, but also it has a valuation that is very conducive to support its beta. Some of these other names just don't. And I think there will be a lot of FOMO into those names regardless of how the valuation is perceived. IREN right there, 45, that's up 3.7. And then CoreWeave is up 3.2. I think Brad Gerstner said CoreWeave is his only favorite data center play a couple of days ago. And so that's been giving it a little bit of love as well. Someone bought 1.4 million of Apple puts for 213, 230 strike. Okay, so some bearish option flow coming into Apple, 256 right here as well. Again, you know, for those that are saying grabs down, I really, there's not much I can explain here. Like, I don't have the reason. I wish I did have the reason. If you hate it, then you got to get out of it and get into something more high beta. It's just that simple. I'm not getting out of it because I think I fundamentally understand the company and I believe the company is going to perform to my expectations. And I know what Stock Talk said yesterday is like he doesn't DCA, he doesn't back hold. That's his philosophy. That's fine. I think there are some names where if you really believe you understand the thesis, then you hold on, especially if they're safe and you're not that worried about the downside from the levels you bought them at. If you are annoyed of something in your portfolio because it's not moving, dump it, get rid of it, move on. Like it is like you break up. It doesn't have to be that complicated. And then you just remove the stock from your watch list. So it's like deleting photos of your ex, right? Looking back at Davis, like kind of, you know, you got to get rid of the memories. Like it is what it is, but complaining about it doesn't do anything. Because the same thing with BM&R, like complaining about this shit. Like you could blame Tom Lee all you want, but at the end of the day, Ondas is outperforming it. Drones are better than Ethereum right now. So if you're going to be thematic and manage a portfolio where you move from theme to theme, then you got to do that. But I just don't think complaining makes sense here if you know what you hold. Amazon right here at 243. Kalshi said it won't pay bets on Maduro because it wasn't technically an invasion. They will if actual boots on the ground happen. That's wild, bro. The prediction markets on Maduro were wild. And some of the insider trading that was going on Polymarket was also wild. MP, that's up 1.3%. But yeah, I don't know where the prediction markets insider trading regulations are going to come from. But obviously we're seeing insider trading and that stuff, given how people knew what was going to happen. Nabius loses 100 once again. Again, and this is good, like the good thing about this, what's happening over the first week is it forces you to ask yourself, what type of investor are you? You know, it really does, because if you're more of a person who wants to be in the themes that you think are going up and you want to be well positioned in those themes, and you're not, like that forces you to think about rotation. If you have zero problem with a Rocket Lab going to $90 and you're not in it because you just don't care about taking the risk on that multiple, and you don't care about playing the space theme because you're happy with other stuff you're doing, then that's fine. But a lot of it comes down to what, I mean, Nvidia, right? Like I have a pretty big position in Nvidia. If I had taken that money out of Nvidia over the past couple of days and put it into any of these names that are up 20, 30%, I mean, I don't know when Nvidia is going to go up 20, 30%. Like I think it'll happen this year, but man, it's going to take some time and energy. I mean, the company is obviously the biggest company in the world. Nvidia just doesn't go up 20% for no reason, but a lot of these names have in the past 5 days. Now, am I going to say, oh, I need to get rid of my Nvidia to put it into some of these? Like, no, you can't. It's hard to reason like that even though the thought can get into your mind of like, well, if I took all this money and just put it into this and made 20% in a day, that'd be amazing. But that's also the quickest way to just like lose your shit and then miss out on some of the compounding on these names. Yeah, it's FOMO, exactly. It's FOMO. But I also think this stuff forces people to see if they can deal with the chop. I mean, Amazon, right? Amazon has forced people to see if they could deal with this pain. Finally getting a little bit of a breakout here, but you had to hold after earnings when it pumped to basically 260, then came down to 212. And if you cut around that 212, 215 era, which was like a month ago, I mean, you're here at 245. Maybe with an inflection of 300 with a fundamental thesis that's just simply is not being reflected in the price yet. But if you had cut it for something else, then you have to ask yourself, is that opportunity cost worth it? And maybe it is, maybe it's not. S&P is trying to go green right here. That one's still flat. Uber 8660, ASTS up 8, then Kratos up 17. Lunar's up 7, VSAT up 8. Where's Fighter Jet, FJet? That name is up 11 as well, 1141. This one went IPO a while ago. Christian, thanks for the super chat. This is why I always say never go all in on one stock. Yeah, I mean, look, if one or two names are the majority of your portfolio, you've just got to be right on those names. That's it. And like right now, if you're not right on those names, cutting them and chasing names that have rallied 40%, that is a choice you can make. There's just some more risk involved. But maybe there's not. Maybe those names are going up another 40%. Again, it really comes down to how comfortable of an environment do you feel like. My personal take on this, I've been saying this for the past couple of days, it's not that comforting seeing this. It's very weird. And there's not a lot of logic attached to it, which usually when that happens, like October didn't have a lot of logic attached to it either. And then boom, it goes. I mean, October was when the meme stock ETF came back, which should be up, right? This thing is still below all-time highs. MEME is the ticker, meme. It's like there's different names that have started participating in this rally, but still trade at pretty heavy multiples. Nebius right there at 99.25. But it's weird seeing AMD at 206.85 after what they announced. It's weird. Yeah, Sachin was all in on Palantir with margin back in 2022. And that shit wasn't moving. There are plenty of interviews. If you just type in meet the investor who went all in on Palantir on YouTube, you'll find Sachin's video on my channel. I think there's like poker chips in the thumbnail. And he did the same with SoFi. I mean, in 2024, Sachin went pretty heavy into SoFi, like 7 figures, and between 7 and 8, and just waited. You know, and sometimes it is a waiting game, and that's okay. And this is the thing I think Steve's been talking about. Like we can't demonize waiting anymore. So, people that don't want to wait more than 2 years to see something, it's like, okay, that's fine. But do you survive as an investor for 40, 50 years doing this if you're not able to have that patience? I don't know. Especially if you stop believing in a thesis, that's something different. But if you get tired of waiting, even though the thesis is good because Kratos is up 15% a day and you're not in Kratos, like that's a different question. Nvidia still red on the day. Did this not happen last January? I don't think to this extent. I think February is when we really started seeing the high beta. But remember, in February, we had one day where it all just crashed. I mean, Palantir went from 120 to 100 in a day, and then it fell to 60. I mean, that day, ironically, Trump said something about defense that day. He said that the Pentagon's cutting some of their defense spending or something that hurt Palantir, and then it was a cascading effect with the tariffs. I guess that's what Tom Lee is going to say is happening again for that type of drawdown. But I feel like it would have to be Trump-induced more than anything if it's not the broader macro. Was there much chatter at CES about batteries? Yes. Batteries, robotics, energy, the grid, self-driving. There's a lot of Chinese companies at CES that are doing self-driving and robotics. There's a bunch of robots like boxing each other. Like I think robotics is the #1 theme that I saw at CES. And that theme in particular hopefully is what sets us up for a exciting new use case of AI, which is robotics. The Dow Jones, by the way, that's green. That's trying to break above 50. And Trump's going to be pretty happy when that officially hits a new all-time high. That's up on the day. Amazon at 244. Where's Home Depot, Caterpillar, some of these Dow names? Those are also up as they're getting some momentum. Caterpillar, that's up a little bit. What about Red Cat? Red Cat is up 12%. Are you buying OSS? Look, so Stock Talk gave me the thesis like in person a couple days ago. I just did not get a chance to buy this thing up 17%. I think there's a fundamental thesis here. It is a small cap though, $220 million market cap. You have to really believe in their military contracts, their trajectory to land a potentially $1 billion contract for this thing to really make a move. But it's now run away from me. I mean, it's up 40% since then. So, the beta is in there. And I think, eventually we'll get a dip on some of these names. But as of now, we haven't. Robinhood below 115. See, again, this is all like, if everything high beta is going up, which is good for trading volumes, why is Robinhood down? I guess you could say because crypto's down, sure. That might be a reason, but this is why it's not the same as 2025 last year. Like, you had everything that was in a trend move in that same direction. This time you're having the opposite. Certain sectors of a trend and subsidiaries inside that sector are moving versus an AMD and Nvidia that were moving a lot last year during this time, and now they're flat. Jose also likes OSS. Yeah, he's talked about that a while ago. What would you do with Rock Lab call options that expire January 2026 with a strike price of 65? Are you bought those, I imagine, not sold those, saying you're plus 1400? So January 26th, that's 2 weeks away, strike price is 65. Well, you have to ask yourself, in 2 weeks, does the market crash? Not crash, but do a lot of these high beta names get hit pretty bad? It's really hard to predict. Obviously, the risk is to the downside, given how much further can they go. But if they can keep going further, those calls can be worth a lot more. I don't know if I'm up on a call, 100%, at least 40, 50%, especially if it's a short-term option, 65 strike deep in the money. I'm probably taking my profits there. But if Rock Lab does hit like 100 in the next 2 weeks, that 1400 is going to be probably worth like 3,000. So you have to ask yourself the probabilities of that versus it coming back down. Amazon right there, almost 245. That is up 1.5%. We also are seeing earnings start next week on the 14th, which are going to be important. What's going on with tariffs overturn? So let's actually see if there's any headlines on that. Tomorrow should be the day that we get it. Cactus, if you have a headline on the tariffs, let me know. I think there's nothing unchanged, though. Versus, I think 10 a.m. is when we get the decision. U.S. Supreme Court is due to rule on tariffs tomorrow. Morgan Stanley Research says effective tariff rate could decline if the administration does not seek new authorities to reinstate the tariffs. All right, so Morgan Stanley has a bull, bear, and base case. Base case, markets stay flat because it's a net neutral policy. Bear case, Trump does something to institute the tariffs without the Supreme Court, which is like their loopholes that Hassett has been talking about. And then bull case is there is no new tariffs. This is the Morgan Stanley report right here. And markets pump. Which, I mean, I think is reasonable to make those three different arguments. But I don't know. That's gonna be weird, dude. When that decision comes, I really do wonder how the market's gonna react to that. Yeah, like Nvidia continuing to tank right here. Guys, I'm at this event. I'm seeing what they are talking about. This makes no sense. Now, from a pure like, hey, this is a $4 trillion company. How much more can we really give it in a short amount of time? It does make sense because it's a freaking $4.4 trillion company. Like, is it going to pump to $5 trillion tomorrow? It theoretically should, based on everything we've been seeing, the earnings. But the reality of it, that might not happen. Whereas a $10 billion company going to $15 billion is just so much easier. Like, it's just like logically, mathematically, it's just easier, which is what we're seeing. Now, granted, why is it down 2% here? I don't know. Your guess actually is as good as mine. because everything I heard at this conference is unbelievably bullish. But that's also why this whole rally is making me a little uneasy, because Nvidia should be participating in this. And it's not like, oh, we're rotating to healthcare and financials and tech. It's like, no, we're rotating to stocks that are trading at 500 times sales, which doesn't make sense as a rotation. You rotate into stuff that's like mitigating your risk. And if you're rotating into risk on, do you rotate into risk on to the point where it's like, okay, the risk is not just on, the risk is turned all the way up to 10. But then Bitcoin's not participating in that. So again, it brings up a lot of questions of like, is this a real risk on rally if the NASDAQ and Bitcoin, which theoretically are risk on indicators, aren't participating? Don't you see that Nvidia already went up? Yes, but so did a lot of the stocks that people are excited about. Rocket Lab also already went up. So why is it continuing to go up, but Nvidia is not? Now, you could give me the space theme argument, which sure, I'll give you. Like, that's fine. Even though the SpaceX IPO is like not happening right now, like maybe it's going to happen in a few months. But the argument that Nvidia shouldn't be going up, but other names should go up because they haven't gone up. Well, a lot of those names have gone up. OSS has gone up. Ondas has gone up. And then if you could talk about fundamentals versus Nvidia and Ondas, obviously Nvidia wins. Now, market cap, I will give you the argument. Ondas is what, a couple billion, Nvidia is $4 trillion. Obviously, Ondas can move faster than that. But if we're just talking about market cap, then I don't think that's anything fundamental. That's just some math on like, oh, this one's cheaper by market cap. So it has the ability, that's just more beta, right? It has the ability to go higher. But it's not like it's doing so much better than Nvidia, therefore it deserves to go higher. And Rocket Lab lost all of its move today from 89 down to 84.97. Still up 1%. QQQ's down 1%. All right, so obviously Max 7's out of favor if the Qs are getting hit right here. But to me, it's not about the Qs getting hit. It's about the rotation of the money going into other shit. And I think that is a lot more interesting here. And again, I'm really not trying to hate on any of these stocks. Like if you have some of these names, I don't care. Like I don't like Open Door, but if you bought it at 50 cents, you've done a phenomenal job. It's at $6, right? I'm trying to just be a more broader analyst here and not be like, yeah, these names definitely deserve 500 times price to sales, because that feels like 2021. I'm sorry, but it does. Like, oh yeah, I could see that stock trading at 500 times price to sales. It's like, all right, hold on. Like what? Like why? Because the stock price is up? That's why? Because I just don't think that's a real sophisticated form of analysis by any sense of the imagination. Now, Palantir is different. Okay, Nate? Palantir. So one stock that, no, but in all reality, obviously I know I'm the first one to say Palantir has a high multiple that could get hit pretty hard, but it's also Palantir. Oh, for all the people saying Zeta is the new Palantir, we need to stop with that nonsense, because Zeta is not the new Palantir. I think people are forgetting how intense the story of Palantir was qualitatively. The thing about Zeta is there's a great number story. There's no qualitative, dude. It's marketing CRM. No one gives a shit. No one actually cares that much about that. The numbers are going up, but no one actually cared. Palantir, people actually cared about that. That's why people watched videos of Palantir when it was $6, because they cared about the company so much. So, you know, it's the same thing with Tesla, right? Like, why does Tesla get it? Because it's freaking Elon, right? Like, those are outliers. I don't think we can compare those. But a lot of the other names, I don't know if they have the same opportunity. Yeah, Zeta does not have global infinite TAM. You know, it's a marketing CRM. It's like, okay, cool. David says you're right, it's better. But the numbers are very attractive. So again, when you have a narrative associated with you, you're going to get a premium. It's just, again, these names are getting a little bit more than a premium here. And that's okay. I will once again say the market doesn't have to be run by the Mag 7. I'm just saying it is very interesting that the Mag 7 get hit and names that are trading at not 20 times price of sales, but 540 times price of sales are getting the bid. And I don't know how that ends, or if it does have to end. Nebius right there, 97.40. Oscar still up 4%. Apple still down 1.5 at 256. Companies are flocking to challenge the administration's tariffs in court after the Supreme Court started asking tough questions with possible ruling tomorrow, plus 1,000 companies sued over tariffs. So again, I'm seeing some headlines that Cactus is posting saying possible ruling tomorrow. So if we don't get a ruling tomorrow, just remember we might not, because the Supreme Court sometimes takes longer to issue an opinion. AMD low of the day now 205. And we might have to wait, but if we do get it, we'll probably see the implication. Does Oracle look attractive? Where is Oracle? We haven't looked at Oracle. 186. No, or so the problem with Oracle still is I don't believe in their RPO. I don't believe they have 540 billion in backlog. And so I'm just not buying. Now, when I see that, maybe that gets me to, but there's other opportunities outside of Oracle. And you don't have the risk of the vendor financing debt. Now, OpenAI, given its traffic slowing down from multiple headlines, which is helping Google pump, if that trend continues, that's a risk to Oracle, because then OpenAI is not going to have the money to pay Oracle. So I think there's a little bit of a annoying headwind of OpenAI on this stock, but it is down from 350. So, I mean, if it's worth taking a risk, it's definitely towards these levels versus where it was about 2 months ago. Will all these companies refund the customers? If the Supreme Court rules in a way that forces companies to refund customers, it might be possible. And even the lawyers arguing against Trump said it's actually very easy to refund the customers and the distributors. It's not that hard. Which also could be something that affects the broader market with tariffs. Because it's expedited, Bloomberg is saying that it's expected. All right, so we're going to have to see if we get that announcement tomorrow. If any pending tariff news is so bad, why is VIX below 16? That's a great point. You're not really seeing the VIX spike up. S&P just went green. Now, granted, maybe it spikes tomorrow when the news comes out, if it does. But we would have to see. Nike at 64, that's correct. What do you think of UNH, Nike, and Rivian? Nike, I like the insider buys. UNH, if they increase earnings, probably closer to 400. I don't know if it happens this year, but UNH obviously undervalued, but they have to increase EPS expectations. Then Rivian already had its pump post their investor day, like at the end of December. It's down from that pump, but I mean, it's holding 20, right? It was at 14. I don't know if I would buy here, but 14, 15, 16 is when it's made its move. The problem with Rivian, again, is they're still not profitable. And like, I don't know, dude. I'd rather just buy Tesla. I feel like I'm getting more bang for my buck, even if the valuation's harder on Tesla to stomach than a Rivian. Bitcoin back up to 90, so that's probably helping the S&P as well. 90.2. Then Netflix still red. Teslas, I took a swing on Nike. Yeah, the insider buying alone, I think, is worth a swing, especially if the tariffs get overturned. Then, I mean, like, who knows? Maybe the thing gaps up to 70. But we've got to see if that happens tomorrow. If Trump can tell defense companies to curb dividends and bonuses to defense contractors, he will do it to healthcare. You know, Trump RX, right? He's trying to eliminate the PBMs and get rid of the middleman. Tesla right here flips green. But the question is, does the authoritative power actually force companies to interact with his agenda? Like, here's the other thing. Are companies still afraid of Trump second year into his administration? Like, are companies still like, oh, you know, we need to appease Trump? Like, I don't. And if the Democrats win the midterms, they're definitely not going to be as afraid anymore because we're going to have gridlock. Whereas in the beginning of the year, beginning of last year, obviously they were much more worried about Trump. But yes, I do think he has some level of bargaining on healthcare. What else do we have? All right, let's see some of these other headlines. Oh, yeah, look at this. This is interesting. So this, I think, is the chart that's very important. Tariff lawsuits skyrocket since April. Wow, this is interesting. Hundreds of cases filed since the hearing ahead of the Customs Act. And again, the Supreme Court decision is going to make an implication on a lot of what happens with all these tariff lawsuits. So that's also going to be something that we absolutely have to watch out for going into tomorrow. Tesla now 433. Getting a bit of a flip. Maybe the buyers are coming in. Besant yesterday said the Fed should be cutting more rates. Okay, makes sense. Obviously, they want these rates to come down. Bitcoin right there still at 90, Tesla 434. ChatGPT could soon analyze your health data. Okay, dude, how's the information getting every single OpenAI headline? Like, what insider is leaking all this shit to OpenAI or to the information? But apparently they're working on more health stuff now. Coca-Cola, that's up 1.8. Amazon 1.2. Seeing some of the value names get some love. S&P now trying to form a trend. A little bit, 689.60. SoFi just went green. Trying to see if there's anything more broader macro. Lisa McLean, who's a representative, just bought $250,000 in XAI. Oh, we forgot to cover this. XAI is raising $20 billion. That's pretty big news in terms of the amount of money, Series E, that they're going to be deploying into data centers. Oh, they posted on X yesterday. Okay, cool. So OpenAI already confirmed the health stuff they're working on. So XAI raises a $20 billion funding round. Elon said they're going to buy another 1 million GPUs. So, I mean, a lot of this money obviously are going to rotate into companies like Nvidia, which, again, when you see Nvidia down on stuff like this, it doesn't make a lot of sense. Yeah, Anthropic raised that up, $350 billion valuation, I think. $10 billion Anthropic's raising. So the foundation models continue to raise money. That should be relatively bullish, because a lot of that money obviously goes to the companies that we all care about, or it finds its way into companies like Applied Digital in some capacity, right? But it goes to show the money's still out there for AI to be funded. 689.47, Tesla 432, S&P just flipped red again. Nvidia still down 1.5, AMD same. Drone stocks are up. Nebius up, Grab down, SoFi down, Bloom up 12. It was at 128, now at 121. Then ASTS up 3. What do you think about ANET? I really haven't looked enough into this. ANET's down 4% right here. It's in the networking space. It's not an industry I fully understand, to be honest. Jose has talked about it a couple times. I don't know. When you're looking at these derivatives of semis, like the obvious one that worked was Micron or memory. So I think people are trying to find what's that next derivative inside of the semiconductor theme that they should be excited about. And I don't know if it's networking. But again, I haven't really dived super deep into it. Jose was at CES. Yes, I think he left yesterday, but I got to meet him in person. He's an awesome guy, dude. Jose, Tanner I've seen many times in person, but Jose, Tanner, they're super cool. Yeah, we all got to get dinner, and it was fun to talk about semiconductors in person with them. Nvidia 186, Red Cat up 13. Also, ticker symbol U was here. Super cool to see that guy. I've been talking to him for a couple years, so awesome to see him as well. Amazon 244. So you want CrowdStrike got a massive price target yesterday. 468 right here down. I think they got like 570 at one of these firms. Dan Ives likes this one as well. Wow, Centrus Energy down 8%. They just got like a $500 million grant on Tuesday, which is why the stock pumped. For the past 5 days, they're still up 19%. So obviously they're taking a little bit of a hit right here. But which is probably normal, but you know, for anyone who bought it 8% ago, $25 higher, you're gonna have to wait now. And this is some of that pain that could happen on a variety of these names. Rocket Lab still 86, AMD Nvidia still red. Lemonade's up a little bit, Broadcom down 2, Air Test Systems, I know Roy likes this, that's down 5, Adobe's flat, Salesforce and Adobe coming back a little bit over the past couple of weeks, but still red. And then Oklo down 1%. Silver still down 5. on the day. U.S. House Ways and Means panel invites 5 of the biggest healthcare insurance companies to January 2022 hearing. Okay, so again, they're going to try to work with these tech companies. Would you sell half of your big tech here? It goes back to the same question we were talking about earlier in the show. Like, Nvidia is just not going to provide you the alpha that a company like Bloom Energy can. It's just that simple, based on the mathematical, valuation stuff that we talked. So it's like, now, is that a reason to sell Nvidia for Bloom Energy? Maybe. Also, maybe not. I think that if you're an Nvidia from the deep sea close, you kind of just stay put. Now, maybe if you're thinking, hey, I need a little bit more beta in the portfolio, you trim some of your Nvidia to do that. But again, every time you do that, it's just like you're exchanging one thing for another. The question on that exchange, whenever I think of like portfolio exchanging of dollars, I think of why I'm doing it and like what is the simple reason. And if the simple reason is just you want more beta, then that's fine. But you have to be honest with that, because there's not a fundamental reason I think to trim Nvidia. I mean, I'm sure there's Nvidia bears out there, but like at these valuations, I don't think there's a fundamental reason. For Tesla, there might be, given that Tesla's valuation is crazier. But then again, Tesla's also the only company really showing off physical AI in a meaningful way. So like you have to go back and forth with these narratives. But like if you're holding a bag in Apple and you don't see any narrative converging to get Apple to make a meaningful move, maybe that is more justified to sell off to get into some more high beta stuff. I still think towards the end of the year, big tech wins. Maybe big tech doesn't win as much as some of these smaller companies, but if they can compound another 20, 25%, I mean, you got to be pretty happy with that, given how big those companies are. SanDisk down 8%. Okay, so some of the memory names. This is normal, right? It's up 40% for the year, taking an 8% haircut. This is normal. The question is, does this continue for multiple days and that 40% gets erased? Which, given the thematic of this stock, I don't think that necessarily happens around memory. But that's where you see the trend of high beta breaking, which we kind of saw a little bit of that yesterday, but this pre-market completely reversed it. So we would have to see if that actually continues. Amit, would you take profits on Micron? It's become my biggest position, but it's only 9% of my portfolio. So does it come down to the amount of conviction? Yeah, I mean, a lot of these things are so personal, right? My thoughts on a position becoming your biggest position and then taking profits are, again, if you're going to take profits here, where are you going to put the money? What's a better thesis you have? Now, if you think Micron's overvalued, that's a different question. If you think you're afraid that Micron's going to collapse because you feel like you got lucky and you want to, so that's a different question. I don't think Micron's necessarily overvalued. I think the momentum is pretty high and the momentum could go down for a bit. I mean, this stock was stuck for a long time before it popped. So it's not like the stock is a stranger to having some dull months. But if it's becoming such a big position of portfolio, you just feel like you're too concentrated, then yeah, it's okay to trim a little bit here. But again, where do you put it? Or do you just feel comfortable? Like if raising cash here too, I don't think is crazy. Just in case shit happens. Like there's always the just in case. I don't think any of us thought October 10th and the coinciding November drawdown would be as aggressive as I definitely didn't. If I did, I would have probably taken some more profits early on. But it was. And so in case it happens, having a little cash on the side is not crazy. But again, when you have valuation support, it makes it easier. And this is what Stock Talk was talking about yesterday. Like Zeta, I think, has really good valuation support. So if it goes down, I want to buy more. Like that's what he was saying on Nebius. He thinks Nebius is not cheap here, but like if Nebius goes down to 50, he's ready to buy more because his cost basis is 25. So if Zeta were to go to 17, 18 bucks, I mean, I'd be annoyed, but I'd be excited because like, dude, it's got in really cheap, more cheap than I expected, and I like the name. But if Ondas goes down $7, is that enough to make people think like, yeah, this is a great opportunity? I'm so happy it dropped by 50%. At that point, the price of sales would be 90 instead of 190, right? So it's like, what is the psychology on if you want to add it or not add it? Bitcoin still 90. It's flat. Do I like Novo? Novo's been getting a lot of love. I do think Novo's cheap, and I do think the narrative on Novo has been out of whack for the past 2 years. Now, HIMS is the bigger question, right? This one's been getting hit. with everything that Novo's been doing, especially lawsuits. That's down another 3% today. So it's like, I just don't think I know enough about Novo to buy it, but yeah, I do think it's cheap. What price would you increase your Zeta position? Below 20. I mean, realistically, 2050, I'd probably nibble, but if we get below 20 again, I would. But I don't think buying here is crazy. I don't think 22, 23 is crazy. I really don't. I just want to see, does it have the volume to support it? Because it could be a fake run and the next week it gets, so like, I think it needs a week or two to say, hey, the volume is there for this price to actually be a price people are willing to buy it at. Redwire up 5, ASTS up 4, Kratos up 17. Again, the drone stocks continuing to get some momentum. U.S. October trade deficit was $29.4 billion. That was the smallest since 2009. We do get non-farm payrolls tomorrow. That's another reason we could be seeing some weird market action, because those numbers theoretically could affect the rate cut probabilities. Bitcoin right there, 90,000.2. That's what we're seeing right here. What are we doing with Netflix? I still don't like the multiple here. 40 times earnings feels weird to pay for this. You're not getting that type of growth. It'll be a bigger company in 5 years because it's Netflix. There's no stopping Netflix. They're going to keep dominating. But I don't really like it here. I do think the Warner Bros. Thing, though, is very, very bullish. Costco's up 5%. Oh, boy. Look at that. $50 move on Costco, baby. We need to let Mr. Steve know that Costco's doing okay. I think their October sales came in yesterday, not October, January or December sales came in 8% higher. And that was a little bit better than expected when it came to Costco. Rotation from Nvidia to Costco. Yeah, exactly. 930 on Mr. Costco. What's your favorite food? I think Indian and Italian are top 1 and 2. Although I'm becoming a steak fan, dude. Like, I really do think I'm developing an appetite for steak, especially since I know how to eat steak now. But I think Italian's up there. Like, I've always just loved fettuccine, It's been my favorite. IWM right there, 257.70. That's green. Meta recovers from 638 to 641. Steak fan, my boy is really growing up. Dude, also when I eat steak, I just feel like I'm a carnivore, Like, this is what humans do, even though that's not true, because it's even worse because I'm Indian. Like, that's not what humans do. But you feel it. But it also legit tastes good. Like, I like the taste of steak. Just like it. S&P again goes green, 689. And then Nvidia's 185.76. For all the people saying I said fettuccine wrong, I don't care. Okay, we did this on the market open a year ago. That was the word of the day. I don't care if it's fettuccine. It's fettuccine. Okay, I've been saying fettuccine all my life. It's freaking fettuccine. I'm not saying fettuccine. It doesn't look like a chini. It looks like a tuni. So if I'm at an Italian restaurant, I say, do you guys have any Alfredo fettuccine? It's a tuni, not a chini. But you guys can think whatever you want. Nabius right there, 5% move. Back above 100. Dude, does someone have that clip about me finding out how to actually say fettuccine? I remember that. Was that even last year? I think that was definitely 2025, but I think that was like the summer. And I was just like, what are you guys talking about? It's fettuccine. Like, no, it's fettuccine. I was like, I haven't seen that argument before. Gerstner, let's listen to him. He seems to be still bullish on this AI ecosystem.
You just ran around the horn on the desk, and I think everybody is spot on. This is going to be a stock picker's market. It's not 2023 or 2024, where we were early in the super cycle and we were recovering from the pullback in 2022. And remember, last year wasn't straight up and to the right either. The NASDAQ was down 20% on Liberation Day in April of last year and ended the year up 20%. And so I think there's a lot to be excited about. as you look at this year. But as Venezuela reminded us over the weekend, as the SCOTUS decision on tariffs will probably remind us, there's certainly a lot of things we have to get through this year. But if we just look at the general operating framework, and then I'll get to Nvidia, lower taxes, we're in a rate cutting cycle, inflation under control, earnings growth is occurring. We've got this AI super cycle, this massive investment super cycle. We have this reindustrialization and bringing on re-onshoring our national supply chains. That's also a huge investment super cycle. So the backdrop looks good. And then we have these companies that are all getting more fit, right? They're leveraging AI. This is tough for the employment picture, but it really does lead to this golden age of margin expansion.
I did see Brad Gerstner at CES, but I didn't want to fanboy, so I didn't go up to him, but I did see him. Tanner actually got to say hi. Tanner did fanboy, but I didn't fanboy.
And I think what you heard from Nvidia yesterday was a lot more of the same, right? The consensus estimate this year, I think, is that they're going to grow earnings about 65%, maybe 30% in 2027. You said it's an earnings-driven market, so they don't need to expand multiple. The multiple's 25 times earnings. It peaked in July of 24 at 41 times earnings. It troughed last April at 21 times earnings. Now we're at 25 or 26 times, so it's not a demanding multiple. And as a shareholder, Scott, I'm thrilled and happy just to sit here and let an incredible company generate earnings and let our returns come from earnings. We don't need our returns to come from multiple expansion in Nvidia.
You sound like somebody, if you paint the picture that you just did of the backdrop, which you think exists, who's taken their exposure up, I would say. I don't know the answer to this, so I'm going to ask you straight up. That's what it sounds like, that you've increased your long exposure to this market. Is that fair?
That's fair. So let's just walk through, last year. We started last year medium large in terms of our exposure. By April, we were tiny in terms of our overall exposure to the market because of our fears about, I came on this program and talked about, the Navarro nuclear option around tariffs. We were back in the market extra large in May. We stayed there for most of the year. We pulled back in October because things started getting really frothy. But as the market came in, right, as Nvidia went from $210 a share back to $170 a share, we were buying that. And so we're back into a medium large position as we start the year. But as the desk said, this is a stock pickers market. So our biggest bet is in AI infrastructure, Nvidia, TSMC, Hynix, Samsung, Amazon, Microsoft, CoreWeave, Google. We think that we're still very early in the super cycle. People, it's hard to believe, but we're underestimating, right? Think about the total CapEx here.
Honestly, if you believe in that thesis, one of the things to just DCA into this year is SMH. Like, it really doesn't have to be too complicated. And who knows, that might be something that I consider as well. But if it still has alpha to be gained and you want to take less risk by not picking an individual name, I mean, SMH did 50% last year. If it did even 20 or 30% this year, that would prove the cycle still has a long way to go.
Scott, in 2023, these companies spent $150 billion on CapEx building out data centers. This year, over $500 billion. Though that's not speculative. That is purchase orders. Those are buildings. That's power. That's stuff that we know is coming online, chips that we know are going to get deployed. And frankly, they would buy a lot more if they could, but we just don't have enough powered shell in order for them to deploy more than the 6 gigawatts in the case of Amazon that they're going to deploy this year. And so, we think that will continue to play out. It's where the majority of our bet sits today. And we think, we don't rely on earnings multiple expansion in order to get paid this year. All of these stocks are trading in mid-20s in terms of their multiples. In the case of something like CoreWeave, which has fallen out of favor, trading at 5 times EBITDA. So, we think there's an opportunity if they just deliver the numbers that we expect them to deliver this year.
You think that the CoreWeave concerns are overdone? Is that what you're saying? Because the market obviously had punished this name with some of the other neo clouds, and there's questions about debt, and you had almost a same sentence conversation with there's the Oracle, which is under some heavy pressure, and you see the CDS blowing out, and then you've got the CoreWeaves that are in that group too. Is that overdone?
Yeah, I mean, think about the way the market behaves, Scott. It was all in and then all out, right? The babies get thrown out with the bathwater. All neo clouds get treated the same. We were investors in CoreWeave when it was a private company. We've been investors as they entered the public market. And as it's pulled back here, we've added to our position. We're not adding to other neoclouds. We don't think other neoclouds are created equal. We think CoreWeave stands alone in terms of its performance, the software that is built on top of the cloud, its execution capability, its strategic importance to Nvidia in terms of deploying Rubin, et cetera. And so we think it makes a really interesting opportunity. Now, let me be clear. That's further out on the risk spectrum, and the core of our bet this year is on things that we think are, less spicy than that. The Nvidias, the TSMCs, the Hynix of the world, where they're absolutely critical to just making sure that the AI build out continues.
The other name.
All right, so Gerstner's pretty bullish across the board. The reason I think he likes CoreWeave, this is my tinfoil hat, is because Nvidia is deeply invested in CoreWeave. And that's the only data center that Nvidia has personally put billions of dollars into. If I'm not wrong, I think it's pretty much CoreWeave is 50% of the portfolio. And Gerstner loves Nvidia. That's his top pick. So I think if he was to pick a data center play, it would be the one that's most associated, because I think he's kind of thinking CoreWeave can't fail because then Nvidia fails, right? Or not Nvidia fails, but Nvidia won't let them fail. And they literally have a purchase order of $6 billion worth of GPUs if CoreWeave can't sell them. So I think that's his logic more so than anything else. Nebius fundamentally is a better company. We're just being honest. It's a better company. Given the diversification, given the risk profile, it's not growing necessarily the types of revenues they're doing, but I think it's a better company. But I think the Nvidia correlation with CoreWeave is very, very strong, which is why I think he likes it. Vance is going to be with the White House and Caroline Leavitt. She's the press secretary to talk about the Make America Healthy Again agenda. I think RFK is going to be there as well. I will probably not be live for that, but that's going to happen at 1 p.m. Now, yesterday, Trump put out, or the White House put out a new Make America Healthy Again food pyramid, which is a bit revamped from the previous ones. And here's a 40-second clip of RFK talking about it.
Today, 50% of the calories that our children eat are ultra-processed foods or highly refined carbohydrates that's literally poisoning them. And that is the result of a food pyramid that was driven by mercantile impulses that put Fruit Loops at the top of the food pyramid. We now have a science-based food pyramid that is based upon the most recent best science. And it's telling people to eat proteins, eat a lot of fruits and vegetables and whole grains. And that is going to transform the American dietary culture. Today.
Okay, so basically he said, yeah, we need to get rid of this super processed crap and reform how we're thinking of the food period. Look, I think it makes a lot of sense. I think this is one of those things the administration should be focusing on. There's a lot of controversy between if you're pregnant, do you take Tylenol or not, or do you get vaccines? A lot of that stuff is controversial for a variety of other reasons. Eating healthy should not be that controversial. And so I do think it, from common sense stuff that the administration is putting out right there, makes sense. Now, from a trading perspective, is there a way to play it? I mean, I was thinking about it last night. Is there a name? Obviously, there are names that are super rooted in unhealthy food that maybe don't get the benefit of the doubt from the administration. But I don't know if that necessarily hurts them, because the question is, will Americans stop eating McDonald's? It's probably not. So McDonald's right here a little bit up on the day. But if there's new companies that are trying to innovate and push the boundaries on fresh food that is out there in the ecosystem, maybe they get more of a benefit. I wonder if Whole Foods was still public, what their valuation would be, because they got bought by Amazon years ago. But I wonder if that sort of paradigmatic psychological shift that people have around eating healthy, would that actually implicate the numbers of a company like Whole Foods? Sugar taxing. I don't know if they would tax sugar. I don't know if they would do that. Granted, that probably would be effective for their agenda. Short Kellogg's. Didn't Kellogg's get acquired? Or were they were acquiring? Yeah, Kellanova. Oh, hold on, Kellanova stock. KLG, right? They did an acquisition a while ago. The UK taxes sugar? Really? I did not know that. Bloomberg tried to do that. Dude, taxing sugar, I think would be, I mean, it would just make a lot of sugary shit more expensive. Maybe it would make people think twice about buying it if it's more expensive. AMD right here, lows of the day, 205.57 as well. It happens everywhere but the US. Hold on, let's ask Gemini. How many countries tax sugar? Wow, 120 countries have done this shit. A lot of it's in Europe, bro. I didn't know that. I didn't know we tax sugar around the world like that. Like a cigarette tax, yeah. We definitely tax cigarettes in the country. Look at that. 17 Europe countries levy a tax on sugar, on sugary sweetened beverages. The United Kingdom taxes air as well. Oh my gosh. That's crazy. Okay, so for the people in the UK or in Europe, do you think the sugar tax is stopping people from being fat? Or like eating unhealthy? Or is it just the government trying to impose more stuff? Amcor, by the way, 6% drawdown. I mean, I think this was kind of inevitable. It pumped really hard. Probably had to give back some of that. SanDisk down 10%, Micron down 5%, Centrus down 9%. Seeing a lot of those names. And again, they're still up a lot for the week, so giving some of that back is not that crazy. Rivian, that's flat, and then Nike, it's up 1.5. Look at the obesity rates as night and day in the U.S. No, I'm not disagreeing with that. And I mean, probably the tax has an implication there. I just also think culturally in the U.S. we've got deeper issues around obesity. I don't know if a sugar tax would solve the problem. But maybe it does in other places across the world. Europeans walk a lot too. Yeah, that is also fair. Bitcoin still 90, Nike 64. Let's see what other headlines we have right here. Oh, well, we got M&A heating up in the pharma space as well. Eli Lilly, where's their stock? Let's look at the heat map as well. Lilly goes red. You would think Lilly might catch a bid on some of this stuff. This is the heat map today. A weird looking map. Tech is red. Google and Amazon are green. Everything else goes kind of green. Financial still up, except SoFi. So like SoFi and Robinhood are getting hit, but all the financials are going up. Where's Hood? We are at 115 on Hood. And then Lilly up just Rocket Lab just went red. Look, the fact that Rocket Lab's holding the 80s is incredible. So I think that keeps at least the high 75s. That's not too bad. Michelle says in Houston, we have to drive to walkable spots. Yeah, that definitely is a big difference between the United States and Europe. Now, granted, in different parts of the United States, walking is easier. But in Europe, I feel like it's kind of what you have to do. Bro, why is this guy sleeping again? Like, do I actually put people to sleep, bro? He's dead ass snoring right now. I wonder if you guys can hear it. Like, even me saying this is not getting him to wake up. Oh, he's like legit snoring now. This guy, bro. Costco 930, that's up 5. Hims down 3. SoFi is being manipulated by the shorts. I agree, but I do think Noto's got to give us a good quarter. A really good quarter. Dude, I found out yesterday, someone told me there's another market open that does a bazooka on the opening bell. It's like a different stream. They do like more technical analysis and stuff, but when they do the market open, they do a bazooka. I was like, I mean, you want to wake up to a bazooka or a cowbell? I feel like maybe the cowbell is a little bit more enjoyable, but goodness, dude, a bazooka. Apple, another 1.4% down. Did you get any medium well steak at Vegas? No, just medium rare. Just medium rare. So American. Yeah, it's hella American, bro. I need to have a gong one day. Ring that gong or hit the gong during the open. Without the bell, my wife wouldn't know when to leave for work. Oh my gosh, dude. What does a bazooka sound like? Well, it's just like it's a weapon. It's a military weapon. It's like a launcher for bombs. So I guess it sounds like I don't know. I guess it sounds like a bomb or whatever. And that's what it feels like. There's a lot of animated sounds of bazookas though, from like cartoons and stuff. So it could sound like that. Yeah, like a cannon, I think. 256.79 on Apple. Tesla 434. That one flips green. Yeah, I mean, on the open, we had some green, then we had some red. A lot of the high beta names taking a little bit of a hit. Some of them holding on like a red cat, Caterpillar. Well, not Caterpillar, OSS. That's up almost 14% now. But then AMD and Nvidia not keeping on. Baba's up. Yeah, so the Chinese stocks, Baba, there was a couple of headlines around China stimulus the other day. Obviously, these Nvidia chip headlines are helping the Chinese firms because they're getting better tech. But, dude, I don't know. China's pumped a lot last year. Is this a net new long? There's always the risk of the CCP that you have to worry about. It's up 43% in the past 5 months, 6 months for Baba. I don't know. You should surprise us one day with a bazooka. That would be kind of funny. Add a little bit to grab right here, 491. Yeah, again, I don't know. I don't know why it's down 3%. I don't have a good reason for this. But again, like all I can say, there's not much more I can say. I mean, you either want to be in it or you don't. Like, it's just that simple. You're either going to play the waiting game or you're going to not. If you're not, that is okay. But I'm still in it. I have zero desire to sell. I don't really care about the other names moving up. I'm not going to transition my thesis because of other names going up. But if it's annoying to hold it, it's annoying to hold it. That goes for any name that's not really made a move. Kratos still moving. China warns of battery industry overcapacity risk. This was a headline I saw yesterday as well. Where's ENS? ENS is actually, this is one of Stock Talk's picks. I think he's right about either. We did an Equity Edge podcast on this, and that was when the stock was at 120. The valuation here is very compelling. 1.5 times sales, 5.7 billion market cap. But you always have the risk of an oversupply issue. Now, granted, given the world of batteries, I don't think that should be happening. But like, yeah, that probably could be a reason why some of these stocks could go down. And maybe that's the case. Vlad sold some HUD shares yesterday. How much did he sell? Or that could be another reason it's down. And look, again, you can't really blame him for selling. I mean, he got the stock to go up yesterday, or the last couple of years. He sold 150, 200. It looks like about 400,000 shares yesterday. But also, this is hard to read. Dude, he has a trust, and I never understand these SEC forms, because there's like loopholes to all this stuff. But yeah, it looks like from what I'm looking, he sold about 375,000 shares. Good chunk of shares. He still owns 49 million shares after selling this stuff. But yeah, his trust, the average price was around 120, which, no, this happened January 5th, not yesterday, January 5th and January 6th. Oh, wait. It's not a bazooka. It's a kazoo. That's what I meant. That's they don't do a bazooka. They do a kazoo. Okay, hold on. That's okay. I'm stupid, dude. I'm so freaking. Yeah, that doesn't even make. How could they blow up a bazooka during the? I meant kazoo. Kazoo is a little different from a bazooka. I don't know why I thought a kazoo was a bazooka. It's a little difference. Then again, they kind of sound the same, right? Kazoo, bazooka. Like there's, I got to get a little benefit of the doubt there, even though I don't deserve any. S&P flips red again. It's a long night in Vegas last night. It was a long night. Dude, how did I get that wrong? Bazooka versus kazoo? I think the zoo in the middle of it, and then bazooka makes, like, I think a bazooka makes a loud sound. So I was like, oh, that makes sense. It's a little different with kazoo. It's going to go to war with a kazoo. Oh my gosh. We love your mistakes. Well, thankfully, you guys can appreciate them. They're genuine mistakes. So I'm not saying it to like be funny. Like, I thought a kazoo was a bazooka. Amcor down 5.5. Amazon 243. And then Baba up 5. S&P equals up. Yeah, RSP is up right here. It's weird, right? S&P is just slow. Like, you do have some big names in the S&P that are up today, like Google and Amazon, but this one's not budging. Rocket Lab just went red. SoFi still red, and then Robinhood down 2 right here. Did you hear about Grab starting a 3-month drone delivery pilot in Singapore? Yes, I did yesterday, which is super bullish. Stock price is not reacting. And there's not much I can say there. Like, I don't know why. All I know is that the headlines that I'm seeing are really bullish at every single sector, every single component of it. But again, I think it's a game of really testing patience, and that's okay. I mean, like, you know, investments are supposed to test your patience to an extent, if you fully believe in them. If you don't, then it is what it is. Nebius right there, 99.71. I think the broader question is, like, are you in a thematic that has the entire market excited about? And like, obviously Grab is not in one of those thematics. And that is, I guess, the broader macro divergence with a pick that you might believe in, but that's just not in favor right now because of the trends: space, energy, nuclear, drones. Like, these are trends that have a lot of volume behind them, which is why these names are getting a premium. And the earnings kind of don't matter. And that's okay, right? That's not a bad way for the market to operate. It might be a little bit more volatile, might be unhealthy if we get a correction, but the market is the market. If the market wants to give these stocks, like, who am I to disagree with the market? The question is, you know, are you there when the music stops, or are you there when the music's just beginning? And that's obviously the hardest part. And if you've already been in a name for so long where the music hasn't started, but you think the music should start, then I think it's okay to stay there. Arista's down 5. Broadcom's down 3. Navitas is down 4. That one had a good day back on Tuesday. VG, also another name that just can't budge. And the Venezuela stuff has not really affected it either. 685, that's also flat on the day. It's a good entry on Amcor. Fundamentally, yes. However, again, you know, it's up a lot. And when I say that, I mean to say, like, there can always be a good entry on a price just on the valuation. But if I think SoFi at 26.95 is a reasonable entry. But if SoFi goes down to 23 because of the momentum that's been in the stock and the momentum fades, which SoFi is a bad example because it hasn't had too much momentum, but you know, that's where it becomes a way more attractive entry. And so the question is, do you time the momentum taking a breather? And I don't think you have to be a person who times the market to be able to say, hey, I'm just going to wait a little bit and see what happens. Because if momentum dies out, which inevitably things take breathers, you know, prices get a lot more attractive. So that's where you have to fight off FOMO. It's obviously not easy to do. BM&R right there, 29.75. That one continues getting hit as that's down 2%. Micron's dumping. Yeah, 5% right there. But again, is that something to complain about after it was up 31% in the past month? Dude, this is crazy, dude. Year to date, Micron's up 10%. Past 5 days, it's up 15. Over the past year, it's 225. And I think these like the upgrade today from Micron from JP Morgan at 400. I want to read it to you guys because the way they said it was so it was so not convincing, but they still put a $400 target. They were basically like, yeah, we know memory's cyclical, but we think it's like not cyclical this time. And there wasn't a lot of conviction behind how they worded it. See if I can pull it up. But again, that's the issue with memory, like the cyclicality of it. Even though the multiple of Micron is really good. Yes, it is something to complain about. Yeah, if you bought it 5% higher, it does become something to complain about. Robinhood 114. What else is making a big move today, up or down? I think we what is the name we haven't looked at that has made a big move today, up or down? I feel like we've covered a lot of the. Palantir just lost 180, 178 right there. Where's the quantum stuff? D-Wave, that's down 5. SPY goes red again. Amazon's pushing a little bit. She's trying. We talked about APLD. Oscar, we talked about again. The Senate's got to vote on these subsidies, but it's getting priced as if it will get passed. We talked about Costco. Amit, Iran is on the verge of revolution. How do you think this will impact geopolitics in the Middle East? Honestly, I've not, because I've been in Vegas this whole week, I haven't even done any research into what's going on into Iran. I broadly know the headlines from Sunday, so I don't know much. But, I mean, there are people comparing it to an Arab Springs 2.0 if it actually gets there. I mean, maybe that has some meaningful implications. But as of now, I think it's still in that phase of like, hey, can it actually create that type of momentum? Yeah, okay, so this is another thing I want to talk about. Like, so I didn't see the news yesterday, but the India stocks markets like crashed yesterday. It had the largest drop in over 4 years, and I think it was because of something around tariffs. I don't think a lot of us have massive exposure to Indian stocks, but it was pretty like the Nifty 50. They were down like 10% on average. It's each stock in India's ecosystem. So you're already seeing some of the tariff volatility, and then we have the Supreme Court decision tomorrow. I think it's like a 500% tariff or something that was introduced yesterday. I really did not see the headline, but India got hit pretty bad. And I guess the Supreme Court ruling is going to be important there. Ford is up 4. Wow, Ford is up 4%. Why the hell is Ford up 4%? That's like a multi-year high. No, that's legit. Dude, that's the highest price since. That's the highest price on Ford since freaking July 2024. What the hell did Ford do to get a 5% move? Oh, the tariffs? But the tariffs never even affected Ford. Oh, this 500% tariffs on countries buying Russian oil. Yeah, that was the tariff news yesterday for India. That hurt them. But, I mean, I didn't think it would absolutely tank their markets. Do we have Ford sales numbers? Is that what we're doing? Maybe that's it. I mean, their EV sales suck, but the regular sales have been a lot better. Ford, $14.34. It pays a 4% dividend as well. BM&R down 2. Micron now down 6. Micron now down 6 right here. SanDisk also is getting hit. Ori, thanks for the super chat. Why is Lockheed Martin, High Green, and Palantir being sold? Simple answer, Palantir has a multiple that is a bit more aggressive than Lockheed Martin. Lockheed Martin trades at 1 time sales. Palantir trades at 109 times sales. So, I mean, Palantir is not immune to the high beta stuff, guys. I mean, the fact that it's holding this multiple is amazing, but it's not 40, 50 bucks anymore. For it to give meaningful returns, it has to grow from these levels. And from these levels is at a $425 billion market cap. There's just a lot more market cap that needs to be added for this thing to start a year to date that's similar to last year's year to date, which would be anywhere, from 50 to 100%. And again, when you're holding a stock where the multiple is that high, it's not just about the stock anymore. Like Amcor, it could be about the stock itself because the multiple is not there. Same thing with a Zeta. When the multiple is there, like a Tesla or Palantir, the macro is now more in control of your stock price than anything else. Like the company can only do so much when their multiple is trading and pricing in all that already. So Lockheed Martin doesn't have a multiple. It's still vulnerable to different narratives, but the names that do have a multiple, like, will they get even more premium? And again, I'm a big Palantir bull, but for the people saying this thing needs to go to 250 tomorrow, like, I don't think we're thinking about the implications of what that means for the amount of revenue they're doing, profit they're doing versus their valuation. It's just going to be very aggressive. Just like for the people saying Tesla needs to be $900 tomorrow. It's like, okay, we're talking about multi-trillion-dollar company for a company that's not growing earnings. It will get there. It just might not happen in the time frame that people want it to happen in. Basent said USA-made vehicle buyers will get a 10K tax credit deduction. Oh, there you go. That's your headline then for Ford. I mean, that should be helping GM as well, right? GM's up 3%. Yeah. Is this new 10K tax deduction if you buy a USA-made vehicle? Well, Trump did say you could deduct the interest on the car loan from your taxes. 10,000, that does seem like a new thing. Yeah, that would be enough to get the street excited on this. Treasury is implementing President Trump's no tax on American car loan interest for new U.S. assembled vehicles repurchased in the 2025 to 2028. Taxpayers can deduct up to $10,000 per year. Oh, okay. So it's the same policy. They just put a number on it now. So it's not you get 10K off if you just buy a Ford, but the interest that you pay on the APR, you can deduct up to 10,000. Which is the same policy. They just gave a specific number yesterday. I mean, it's still pretty bullish for a Ford or a GM. That would include Tesla. That would, right? That would. That's true. Tesla does make a lot of their cars here. That's fair. That is fair. Feds, thanks for super chat. Regardless of valuation, and yes, it is aggressive. Palantir will be one of, if not the biggest beneficiary of the defense build out Trump is calling for, in my humble opinion. Yeah, I agree. Again, it's just a question of how much that's priced in. Like, we don't have to debate anymore the qualitative beneficiaries of this administration. We had that debate when we found out the JD Vance, Peter Thiel connection. I remember making a video about that when Palantir was $27. I was like, oh, this is something we cannot ignore. That debate is over. The question is how much of that is priced into the stock. So even if Palantir gets, a couple more billions of dollars of contracts, again, like how much of it will the street continue to say, nope, we're going to give it even more and more and more of a premium? I don't know anymore, given the valuation it's trading at. Which again, if you bought it in the 20s, I don't think that's a reason to sell, because the more the growth they're getting continues to at least normalize and allow them to grow into that valuation. But for that to get to 250 by this year, $300, or even back to all-time highs, they would have to really reaccelerate growth, which they're already reaccelerating at 60%. But can they get to 70%, 80%? Can Palantir put up 100% growth? If they do that, it's off to the races. But is it fair to have the expectation of them to do that as well? I think that's also a question. Celestica, that's down 6%. CLS. A lot of these names in that same bucket are getting hit, which is okay because the semis were up a lot this week. Nvidia is still down at 185. JKL, thanks for the super chat. From a technical perspective, if Nvidia loses 184, there's something under the hood for the overall market. There could be hedging for tomorrow or sentiment changes occurring short term. I think that's a fair argument. If Nvidia loses, I don't know if 184 is the key level, but based on your TA, it might be. If Nvidia loses levels that it shouldn't be losing, then yes, I think that is exactly what we saw happen back in November. I mean, it was Nvidia first that lost. I think it was what? It was 177 was the level Jason was looking at around that time. We ended up going down to like 168. But that was like right before the earnings. And the earnings happened, pumped to 197, head fake, then went right back down to 169. So, I mean, could it be a catalyst again for a broader market kind of sentiment shift potentially? Yeah. But again, based on what I saw at this freaking CES event, I mean, people selling it off right here is just, it's incredible. Given the type of technology they were putting out into the world. And that Vera Rubin is in production. Dude, the biggest stat about Vera Rubin is to assemble the racks on Grace Blackwell, it took 2 hours. For Vera Rubin, it takes 5 minutes. And that is a big implication when it comes to the supply chain around NVIDIA, A, becoming more efficient, but B, making their supply chain more efficient to actually get these products out there into the ecosystem. And I sat down with one of the guys who explained to me how they got that 2 hours to 5 minutes. It is, I mean, it's like the technological pursuit of excellence they've had to live up to is just nothing short of incredible. But the market doesn't care. It's like, until the market cares, you know, NVIDIA can only just keep doing what they were doing. Bloom was up 30% at one point. Now it's up 8%. Uber's green, and then MP Materials settle up a little bit. Yes, the cooling is going to save data centers a lot of money as well. And Jensen talked about that in regards to Vera Rubin. Under 175, I'll start it again. Yeah, but that's probably my level for NVIDIA as well. 175 gets you to like 22 times forward earnings, I think, roundabout. I'm posting the CES interviews probably on Monday. I'll get it edited by this weekend. And I did 3 of them, so I think you guys will be able to see them on Monday when they're out. What do you think the TAM is for NVIDIA? I would like to know your thoughts. Well, so again, and this is why the interviews I did, I think, are really important. The way Jensen is starting to describe this is that data centers aren't even data centers anymore. They're AI factories. Because when you think of a data center, you just think of, oh, let's put some GPUs. The GPUs will be connected to the energy grid. And then boom, like when people are talking to ChatGPT, the GPUs are running, and that is the data center. Jensen is talking about this more as every single aspect of human work, life, and essentially the nature of being a human being is going to be affected by artificial intelligence, which means these data centers should be called AI factories. And the production of that intelligence, the training of that intelligence, the inference of that intelligence inside of robots, LLMs, et cetera, is something we can't imagine the demand for. I mean, that's pretty much what I heard from every NVIDIA employee. Is like, people, obviously they're biased to say that are underestimating the demand, but if you believe them from a technological perspective, you're underestimating how serious the transformation is going to be. Now, is that priced into NVIDIA? Sure, it's the world's largest company. So then the question becomes, where's the upside? Which is kind of the point of my questions to Jensen, which is like, you know, you guys keep beating and raising, but the street doesn't care. And so what do you think you have to do in this situation to get the street to care? That was essentially the essence of what I asked him. And he said, we have to bring the industry forward and get people to realize how many more players and distributors and vendors and companies and startups, et cetera, are going to participate in this revolution. If you believe that, NVIDIA is a $20 trillion company. I mean, like, realistic, if you take it to its logical extreme, that's what you get. Now, going from 4 trillion to 20 trillion is not easy, but like, that is the end goal of what happens. NVIDIA ends up being the winner. But to get there, you have a lot of issues. I mean, if we're going to have billions of robots walking the planet, we're going to need a lot more chips, a lot more data centers. If every single person is going to have an AI system, which, like, we don't now, because Siri is not really connected to anything. Apple has 2 billion users. Like, we only have 1 billion people using AI. There's 8 billion people on the planet. If that scales over the next decade, like, NVIDIA wins. AMD wins as well, right? Like, that semis win in general. But you've got to believe in that. So I actually think there's a chance for that to happen. Qualcomm is another one that I heard about at CES. We've got a headline right here. Qualcomm to deliver chips for infotainment to VW, which is a car brand, in 2027. There's a lot of conversations around Qualcomm, their connections to Apple, their connections to OpenAI, potentially on making a hardware device for AI, which also would need a lot of data center capacity, which ends up going back to Nvidia. Where's the Googs? Are we still at 330? Googs at 327, up 1.8. Dude, if Google does another 70% this year after last year, I mean, that would be incredible. And it is now the second largest company in the world, right? Yeah, so Google, 600 billion in market cap away from Nvidia. It's pretty freaking incredible. Are we seeing below 200 on AMD? I feel like, when's the last time we had below 200 on AMD? Last time was 197 on December 18th. It lasted for a second. We're at 204. AMD is looking kind of compelling. I'm like, I mean, really? They're going to give it 204? 10 times sales. What's their forward PE? Isn't it like 23? It's the same as Nvidia, right? Or a little bit higher. Is it 30? I'm getting mixed numbers here. I think it's 30. Trailing 12-month PE is 100. Yeah, I also feel like 200 is relatively strong support. Below 200 would be nice, though, to get an immediate buy. 37 forward. Okay. So that's still more expensive than Nvidia on the forward. See, this is the question. Like, do I buy AMD or do I just add to Nvidia at that point? Like, I mean, Nvidia is cheaper technically on the forward. Now, AMD's market cap is smaller, so the move might be easier. Yeah, dude, AMD was at 267 at one point. Right before the soybean stuff, AMD was making a move. We got the New York Fed. Got some headlines on what they're thinking about on inflation. Let's take a look at that.
Ability of finding a job reaching an all-time low. Here we can look at the outlook for 1, 3, 5 on inflation. 1 year ticks up by 0.2 to 3.4%, while 3 and 5 year were unchanged. As for the labor market indicators, employment expectations moving slightly lower, but the concerns over losing one's job higher by nearly 1.5 percentage points. Confidence in finding a new job dropped to the lowest since the survey began back in 2013. So you couple that with some of the ISM data earlier in the week, it's very, very mixed.
It is mixed. And again, I would just point out this is survey. Let's see what the hard data show, jobs report tomorrow. But the ISM services, you're talking about the job component, is very strong.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Also survey work.
Yeah, also survey work. Right. I know. December, it looks like there was at least less weakening. Maybe a little bit of acceleration. We'll know more. For more on the economy, the outlook, the market, your portfolio, we're joined here at Post 9 by TD Bank U.S. Vice Chair Jeffrey Sutton.
What happens with the Fed chair appointment in May? I think the Fed is in an easing mode, and that's actually been really good for the economy long term, and I think for equity prices.
So you think we can get a reacceleration, a pro-cyclical move, but not a reflation part of it?
Yeah, I mean, listen, the one counterbalance to that might be we don't really know how much tariffs have actually moved through the system. I mean, every month that goes by when you don't see a structural increase in inflation, it would suggest that firms are adapting and consumers are adapting to whatever the tariffs look like. So to me, the most of what drives these consumer sentiment numbers is like food and like basics, right? Consumer staples, healthcare. These are
gasoline.
Right. I mean, that's what everybody has to deal with on a day in and day out basis. And so, I look at surveys and sentiments. It's really, you can almost tick and tie that to, the basic needs, like consumer staples, as opposed to discretionary. And so I just feel like, those are the things I worry about. That's when job growth slows or when we have increased unemployment, then you start to worry about whether or not people can afford things. And I think
it's interesting your takeaway from some of the data, which.
So I think that's a fair argument. Again, a lot of this data pointing to a variety of different arguments on the state of the consumer. The fact that these inflation projections, once again, are a bit higher than expected, makes you wonder, is that the reason why the 10-year continues to be where it is? 10-year still basically at 4.2 right here, 4.177. Let's hear Gerstner on his software strategy, because obviously the SaaS names have been in decline over the past year outside of Palantir. Brad Gerstner was pretty bullish Snowflake. That one ended up working out, but it took some time. So we'll get some of those thoughts on if those names are in favor.
That the smart money was buying software, that you, in essence, had thought maybe a bottom was in. Is this another one of those moments?
It's a good point, Scott. I'm sitting here looking at my software multiple chart. Look at that peak in 2021, right? We're almost 17 times forward revenue. Today, we're at about 4.2 times. So we're at a generational low in terms of the multiple for software. And let's really just peel back why, right? There's a belief in the world today that I can just go to Claude Code or I can go to Codex at OpenAI. I can tell it what I want, and I can literally have it build a customer relationship management system for my business in about an hour, right? And so why do I need to buy a bunch of seats from, a licensed software company? And to be sure, this is forever going to change software. It already has. But not all software is created equal, right? There are applications which are easily displaced that I think are going to be displaced. And you see those multiples coming down. Lots of big names that were down 20, 30% last year. And we saw that coming, so we didn't own those names. But there are other companies that we own and love, like Databricks and Snowflake, that are actually accelerating. Why are they accelerating? They are the data substrate upon which enterprises are building agentic solutions. So when you talk about using Cursor to go build yourself an application, where do you think it sits on top of? It sits on top of that substrate that Snowflake or that substrate that Databricks has built. So we think the world is getting it wrong by treating all this stuff the same and throwing it all out. And so we'll see. These guys have to deliver. And so I expect we're going to see meaningfully accelerating revenues out of those companies, continued accelerating revenues, durable revenues, AI beneficiaries. And I think the AI beneficiaries will be rewarded. But I think for the other companies, they have to prove that they are AI durable. Remember this. Why do we talk about 10 or 15 times forward revenue for software? Whatever made that valuation metric make sense. The reason we treated it like that is we said these are subscriptions. They are guaranteed. It's almost like Netflix. So therefore, they deserve a very high terminal valuation in your discounted free cash flow. Now, what happens when that future gets thrown up in the air and you say, I don't know if these things are going to be that durable, if companies are going to need those subscriptions? The multiple, right? The discount rate goes up and the multiple compresses dramatically. That's what you've seen happen. Now, here's what I would say. Now is the time to go sniffing in software. 90% of the consensus is correct. 90% of the companies that are down deserve to be down. Find the 10% that got thrown out with the bathwater. Find the 10%, right, that are going to benefit from AI. Maybe it's a Samsara. Maybe it's a Snowflake. And I think those will be very good returning stocks this year.
All right, so it seems like a lot of you guys don't really agree with Mr. Gerstner on his approach to software. I think there's a lot of questions for the SaaS industry, especially when we talk about AI commoditizing it, which is why a lot of those names have not been kind of getting the benefit of the doubt, literally outside of a Palantir that's growing above 60%. But Salesforce and Adobe to start the year again have just kind of gotten hit. Salesforce already down 1% year to date after 30% last year. And then Adobe down 3%. And again, Salesforce and Adobe are big companies, bro. You got a lot of institutional investors in those names. And I mean, there's just a lot of smart money theoretically stuck in those names that are annoyed, which is why people think there might be a turnaround. AMD below 204, low of day. Nvidia also low of day. 184.84. The information with another headline: developers using Nvidia simulation tools report the software is difficult to use and prone to crashing outside of controlled settings. Some have even been advised by staff to use rival platforms instead. Is that what's taking down Nvidia even more? Oh my gosh. See, if you're in something super high beta that doesn't have to deal with the information up your ass every day, like, yeah, you don't have to worry about that shit. And, you know, this is part of the reason why it's hard for Nvidia to make a move higher. I mean, the fact that this stock got to 210 and we are sitting at 185 4 months later after only more bullish things, wild. Absolutely crazy here. Paribal says, I plan to rotate from picks and shovels into software into 2027. When we get into the next stage of the industrial revolution, then after software will come cybersecurity software in 2028. Look, I think that's fair, and I think eventually that rotation plays out. Palantir is a platform business. The platform business will always be the moat. Yeah, I think that's the thing. Like, is the platform the moat, or is the internal processes of a SaaS company the moat? And obviously, I agree. I think it's the platform, and the platform is what allows the integration of AI, which is why AI doesn't necessarily just like kill the platform. So the question is, you know, do you think Salesforce, Adobe, et cetera, have those platforms that deserve to continue getting a premium? Palantir right there, 178, down about 2% for the day. SoFi at least back above 2027. Did you find out what the Dow Jones is? Yeah. Remember, I told you guys that Wall Street Journal reporter, she's publishing this article on like how retail investors think of the Dow Jones. They were actually going to publish it like soon, but then the Dow Jones took a little bit of a hit. But they're waiting for, I think, for it to get to all-time highs. But yeah, I mean, I don't think a lot of us track it, but it's, you know, those 30 companies that, you know, are very important companies. I don't know if they're the companies that necessarily move the markets. A lot of those are in the S&P. A lot of those are more tech. But we are seeing the Dow outperform. CrowdStrike right there. That's down 2. Arista down 4. Rivian up 1.3. SaaS's biggest weakness is there are a handful of platform players. Those will live and grow forever. Yeah, you know, and I think that's part of the reason why SaaS took a hit in 2025, because there was so much AI infrastructure momentum. And the reason Palantir went against that trend, even though it's a SaaS company, is because Palantir almost pitched themselves as AI infra. Like they positioned the ontology, which is a platform, which theoretically you could, you know, dub it as an infrastructure for software, and then you attach AI to it, and then you have the growth rates. Boom, you have like a real thesis right there, even with an aggressive multiple. Salesforce did not do that, dude. Agentforce doesn't feel like that's it. Now, maybe it is. I don't know as much about it, but the perception of it wasn't as, I think, well received by the street. Elf, are we up? Elf, we are up 4%, maybe on the fears that the tariffs go against. What do you think about Spotify, Amit? It's at May level. Spotify is an interesting one. I don't know. This thing was at 750. Daniel Ek left. He's the chairman of the board. He's not the CEO anymore. Their free cash flow margins are increasing. They have a lot more pull with the record labels. I still don't love the business. It's music at the end of the day. Like, I know music's super emotional and stuff, but like, it's music, right? Like they I mean, like, how many people are they going to get to pay for music? Now they have like what, 600 million users, something like that, 300 million pay for it. It's just not the most exciting TAM. And Spotify has tried to compete with YouTube with like video podcasts and stuff, but like, you know, people just use YouTube. I actually like Netflix over Spotify. If we're talking about a media play, Netflix is about to get the best content on the planet with Warner Brothers. That to me is a better pick than Spotify. I also don't like that Daniel Ek, like the founder, left. I mean, he's not the CEO, he's not running day to day. So that founder-led vision, you're just never going to have that again with Spotify. I don't know. I think I would pick Netflix. Oracle 186. Yeah, Oracle's still down. CoreWeave as well. Seeing a 2% move. That's been held there. And again, Brad Gerstner does like CoreWeave here. AMD 205, little bounce. Same thing with Nvidia. little bounce. Still in Vegas? Yes. I'm leaving on Friday. You know, I love coming to these events and these conferences, but man, it messes up your routine and it sucks. But also, it's like, I'm super grateful to be here. It's exhausting, dude, because it's just nice to have a routine, you know? But if I didn't come here, wouldn't get to ask Mr. Jensen a question. So we can talk about that now, right? We're basically, how's it 11:30, bro? Where did the time go? It's 8:22. That's crazy. We've been on for 2 hours and 35 minutes. Dude, I must have been yapping today. I think we barely played. We played like, what, 2 clips from CNBC about Gerstner? This is a friggin' 95% to 5% yap ratio today. This is what happens when I miss your show. There's just so much more to yap about the next day. AMD back at 204. 204.80. I have an average on Nebius at 92 a mid. Do you think 100 is expensive considering all the revenue channels? No, but Nebius, I think Nebius is in a 15 to 20% range. So I would not get FOMO on Nebius. I feel like it could be back down to 85 easily. Like literally, just look at the chart. Or it could go up to 115 easily. Like, but you have to be okay with either or on the chart. I don't think I would FOMO into this given how quick it moves up or down on data centers. All right, so we can talk about the Jensen question because I think that's pretty much it. Summary of the day is high beta continues the rally. Big tech continues to slump. Rotation from big tech into high beta is very real. Is it healthy? And is it sustainable are the two questions to put on the table. But the thesis of this market 8 days in is rotation from large cap to high beta small cap is happening. Don't know if it's real. Don't know if it's sustainable. Don't know if it's like institutional. Don't know if it's retail. Those are big questions. And then the biggest thing for this week is the tariff stuff. If we actually get that headline tomorrow, you know, will that implicate the market? But the S&P is basically holding all-time highs a week into this year. So it's like, you know, we're not seeing some massive 4 or 5% decline, which kind of looked like it was happening at the end of 2025. Like, dude, we were down 1% on the last day of the year last year. It just felt like we were entering into a crappier 2026 and immediately reversed, and high beta took a massive swing upwards. And I guess that's the summary for the day. Jobs to, and non-farm payrolls tomorrow. That's a big deal. So I will be live for the market open tomorrow. Probably not the close. And I won't be doing the close today, but we will do the open tomorrow. And we'll see what happens there. Laura says, I think the market is de-risking from plays tied to the Trump administration. The names dumping are tied to Trump, and even if the tariffs are ruled against, they probably wouldn't benefit. I definitely think you're right that the market is de-risking on certain names that are tied to Trump. But then again, the market's also risking or going heavy into risk on that is also tied to Trump. I mean, a lot of this, all the semiconductors are tied to Trump. Right? Like Trump controls the sort of narrative on how much data center capacity, AI revolution. Like if he's pushing forward positive messages, which the administration has been very supportive of, that should be a benefit. And you're seeing the risk on appetite there. But you're right. There's other parts the market is kind of afraid of, like the restoration hardware business. Obviously the home sellers based on yesterday, defense contractors. Is Lockheed still up today? Lockheed, yeah, still up 5% after going down 5% yesterday. If we were to increase defense spending by $500 billion. So, I mean, I think a lot of those things ultimately hinge on how Trump's going to frame this narrative. Okay, Jensen question. Let's talk about it. So for those that didn't see it, I don't want to play the whole question right now, but you can watch it on my X. It was about 4 minutes. I think there's a couple takeaways from this question that are super, at least important for me to reflect on. But the gist of the question again was like, how do you deal with the pressure of building the company, given the world is riding on your shoulders, and given in particular a lot of us retail investors, you know, people that don't have $100 million sitting in JP Morgan own the stock, right? And then, you know, a lot of retail investors are on the ride for this. And so I think there's kind of two takeaways. First is how I got the question. I think we'll start with the most juiciest thing, how I got the question. So, and then we'll talk about the question itself. This is where, and I wanted to talk about this because I think this is a takeaway for life in general. This is where my philosophy of just giving unconditionally, and maybe you will be rewarded. Once again, it was proven this weekend, and it's something that I genuinely believe in. So there were a lot of people in that room. There was like 1,000 people in that room, and there was, they only had an hour for questions, so you had to raise your hand, and one of the people had to come give you the mic, and everyone raised their hand, obviously, because everyone wanted to ask a question. And so we had about 10 minutes left, and the guy next to me, actually, who runs the Humanoid Hub on Twitter, for those that don't know, he's like the biggest humanoid robotics account. He actually got a question. He was sitting right next to me. And so when I didn't get the mic, when he got the question, I was like, oh, there's no way, because they're not going to come back to my row again. Like, they came to my row, they gave it to the humanoid guy, and it is what it is. It's whatever. Then in the last 10 minutes, Jensen's answering a question, something about China, and he's like taking a long time to answer the question. I get a text message. All right, I get a WhatsApp message. And Davis, are you sleeping during my story?
Wow. I've heard it 10 times.
He's like, I heard it 10 times already. So I get a text. Thank God my phone is not on Do Not Disturb. Because if you know my phone, it's always on Do Not Disturb. Thank God my phone is not on Do Not Disturb. And I'm like looking at my phone. I get a text message. I get a WhatsApp message by my Nvidia contact, the person who kind of has helped me set up all these interviews and everything. And he's like, do you have a question for Jensen? Because we're running out of time, but do you have a question? I see that message, and immediately, I think it's the fastest I've ever responded to a message, bro. I was like, yes, I have a question about how he philosophically deals with the pressure. I think it'll be a really important one, but if not, no worries. So I send that immediately. A minute later, I see a guy walking from one end of the room it's a big ass room to the other end of the room. Me, Tanner, and Jose were kind of at the back. And I can tell he's looking at me, and he's like eyeing me down. Jensen's still answering some China question, which he got like 15 of. And I think Jensen was getting pretty annoyed with these China questions. And because there's just like not much more you can say. And so I can tell, holy crap. Someone, like, the connection was just like within a span of 30 seconds, my connection got the contact to get the guy to ask me a question, because if he didn't tell the guy who had the mic to go up to Amit, he probably pointed at me and said, hey, he has a good question, like, go up to him. That question wouldn't have happened. That question would not have happened. Now, the takeaway here is, why did my Nvidia contact actually message me and ask if I have a question? And I think the reason for that is because I didn't ask for anything from him. So when they reached out and said, hey, would you like to cover some of the content at Nvidia? They were like, hey, you can talk to this person. You can talk to this person. You can talk to this person. Can you send us some questions? Can we figure out how you're going to frame this? Like, are you posting on X, YouTube? Like, a lot of the logistics stuff. I was just a good sport. And I asked for nothing. I never, not once, asked for a Jensen interview. I never said, can I ask Jensen a question? I never said, can I get a photo? Which I just didn't ask for a single thing, because in my head, and like genuinely, this is my philosophy. I was like, look, I don't know Nvidia as well as Hood. I don't know Nvidia as well as Palantir. I don't have a connection with Jensen like I do with Vlad or Karp. So let me just build some goodwill and like show them that yeah, I'm excited about the company. I'm obviously an investor in the company. I have an audience that cares about the company, and I would love to get some content out of the company. And I would love to highlight their big executives that don't really get the main stage like Jensen does on my channel. And if my channel can provide some distribution to some of their big executives, and that's good for them, then that can be my value prop. That can be my way of giving more than taking. And I think he recognized how, like, I guess, good of a person I was to work with. And that's why he asked me if I had that final question. Because literally there was like 5 to 10 minutes left, and the people with the mics were running around giving it to anybody, very randomly. I mean, it was 1,000 people, so you have literally a 1 out of 1,000% chance, and there's that probability goes even lower when you factor in the way the people have the mics, the locations they were in. So really, like, if he did not ask me, if I didn't see that message, again, I need to keep my phone off Do Not Disturb in the future. But if he didn't make that connection, then the question wouldn't have happened. So I think the first big takeaway is just you just give unconditionally. Like in life, you will get rewarded for giving unconditionally. And sometimes you won't get rewarded. If I didn't get the question, I wouldn't be complaining here. But the question happened. It was a hell of a moment. It kind of reminds me of when Jason Calacanis asked Steve Jobs a question. And there was a little bit of a back and forth between him and Steve Jobs. And I think I'm going to look at this question 20 years from now and be like, when I was at the beginning of my journey, I got to ask Jensen a question. So yeah, I really do think like it's more about giving than taking, and eventually things end up playing out. Now, in terms of the question itself, so I mean, there's two perspectives I have on the question. Some people felt the question was a little awkward and it wasn't the best question to ask. Other people overwhelmingly, I guess, from what I saw in my comments, like really did like the question. And I personally like the question. I think my delivery of the question could have been better. That's where I'll critique myself and I'll talk about why. But I think the question itself, I really don't agree with the critique of the content of the question. The critique I'm seeing is a lot of people are like, why didn't you ask about like Taiwan? Why didn't you ask about the efficiency of Vera Rubin, yada, yada. And I'm like, dude, all this shit is in the press release they put out. So like, what, like, I mean, that's just such a, like, you and some of you guys, I mean, I don't think that they didn't record this. So there's some Bloomberg headlines about this, but there were some stupid questions, bro. There was one question where I don't know if this made the headlines, but a guy from Reuters said, Donald Trump Jr. is on the board of 1789, which is a VC firm. That VC firm made an investment in Grok right before you bought it. Nvidia bought Grok. Essentially, the question was, did you buy Nvidia to enrich, or did you buy Grok to enrich the president's son? Because obviously they were going for the clickbait, the connection. It's Reuters. They always like those headlines. And Jensen handled it like a pro. He was like, oh, I didn't know that 1789 invested in Grok. And that was it. That was it. And he moved on. And I genuinely believe Jensen probably didn't know, because like, I don't think Jensen knows every single VC who was in his deal of buying a company. But B, you could tell Jensen was just like, really, Brody? Really? That's how you're going to try to get me? You're going to try to get me on a headline saying, yeah, I bought a company so that Donald Trump's son could make money. And you could just tell the like disgust that Jensen had in his voice when dealing with these questions. And the other thing that's important about this is a big thing I forgot to mention. My Nvidia contact, a couple weeks ago, he told me, like, you're going to be in the private press Q&A. You might get a chance to ask a question. And he explicitly said, Jensen has roasted questions before many times. And I'm like, really? He's like, yeah, he's not a fan of people that ask stupid questions, and he will roast it like no tomorrow. So he's like, if you do get to ask a question, just make sure like it's a reasonable question, because he will roast questions. And unfortunately, that is also what happened to our boys from Wolf Financial. So they were with me as well. They got to ask a question right after I got to ask a question. And their question ended up kind of getting rejected by Jensen the way I thought it was a relatively good question, but they still got rejected. So here's the clip. But this goes to show you how much Jensen will like not like your question if your question is stupid, which we'll get back to my point about like the quality of my question.
Yeah, I'll take a couple. Hey, Jensen, thank you so much for having us here. My name is Scott Black, Clerk of Wolf Financial. Similar to my fellow Cameron Amid, also a venture content creator, sharing the word of Nvidia. A lot of my audience, I think what infatuates them about Nvidia is that what's happening nowadays and being created nowadays, robots, etc., they couldn't even fathom 10 years ago, right? It was impossible. So when you look 10, 15 years out from now, what's something that today is impossible, but you believe that we're going to accomplish?
So the question, for those that haven't seen this, was, what do you think that is something that's impossible right now in the world of AI, robotics, etc., that in 10 years will be possible? Do you think that's a horrible question? I'm sorry if the volume is bad, guys. I can't control it, but that's the volume on this thing. I don't think that's a horrible question, right? What can we expect in the future? But this is what Jensen had to say.
Well, if I told you that, if I told you that, you won't come back. You know, you gotta dole this out a little bit at a time, or you have to join Nvidia. That's the answer.
And that was it. That was it. Like, so, and all of us were sitting there. We were like, damn, bro, that just, the question just got roasted immediately. Like, it was, I mean, look, it sucks, right? Like, it sucks when that's your question. And Jensen's like, well, if I told you what we were working on, you wouldn't come back. And if you want to learn you can freaking join Nvidia. Now, intrinsically, was that a bad question? No, I don't think that was I don't think that was a horrible question at all. However, and this is going back to my question. The other critique I heard in my question was that it was very long, right? It took me about 1.5 minutes to get through the question. I think the 1.5 minutes that I spent set up context to make Jensen feel comfortable to give me a response. And the context I was giving was that, hey, I stream about the markets. We talk about Nvidia. We have people join across the world on your live streams. And like a lot of people thought, oh, that was unnecessary to say. In my opinion, and that was not trying to promote myself. Like genuinely, people can believe whatever they want to believe, but there's no promoting myself. Right? There's nothing I have to promote. I wanted to give them context to say, Jensen, I have access to an audience that deeply cares about you. They cover the markets every day. They're with me every day. When you guys have earnings, we listen to a blank screen and audio for an hour, 25,000 of us. This is who I am, in case you don't know who I am. And I think that context was important because then when I asked the actual question about, hey, this is what I do in my business. This is the retail investors that follow me. And this is what we're seeing with the pressure that your company is facing. And then the punchline was, how do you deal with that pressure? How do you navigate that pressure? How do you think of essentially the concept of pushing the industry forward? Because a lot of us own Nvidia stock. And if we own Nvidia stock, and we're retail investors in particular, I think Jensen has a particular infinity for that, because a lot of people actually believed in Nvidia before the institutional guys came on board. I mean, you know, there's people in this chat that I know have 100,000 shares at a $2 average because you believed in Nvidia, you believed in that vision. And so that was the gist of the question. That was the point of setting up the context. And also, in my defense, Jensen interrupted me twice. So I think the setup of the question would have been a lot shorter. But once you get interrupted, immediately you have to respond to the interruption, right? Because you have to like follow it up. And dude, he interrupted me immediately. Like he was like, well, this is a great time to be alive with you guys. And then I had to like follow up and say something. And then he did it again. So I think that's what kind of pushed me off a little bit, but it forced me to like have some time. And thankfully he gave me the time to like actually get the question out. But I think it set up a lot of, he gave a 2-minute answer to set up the context for his answer. And was the question soft? Of course it was soft, but what hard question could you possibly ask in that moment? Like what hard question is even reasonable to ask to Jensen Huang at a press Q&A? Oh, if China invades Taiwan, what's going to happen? He would be like, you know, I don't know. We're going to have to see. Like, imagine I had that big ass setup. I'm a retail investor. I have a lot of people following. We care about Nvidia. By the way, so what happens if China invades Taiwan? I mean, I think he would be so pissed because like, really, you set all that up to ask me about if China invades Taiwan? It was not the time nor place to ask that. Now, if we get a podcast with him, that's a different question. But someone actually did ask about gamers and being afraid about gamers. It was like foreplay. Okay. I mean, that's one way to frame it. But yeah, it was kind of like, you know, you had to butter them up. So let's watch the clip right here. I've watched it like 10 times. So now I don't feel like watching it anymore. But we'll play it one more time. And you guys can see what it was like.
We are living in the greatest time to be alive.
Okay, I'm going to roast myself during this as well, too, because there are some mistakes that I make. So first of all, that quick hi, Jensen, that was nervousness, Snowbird. I was supposed to be like, hi, Jensen, my name is Amit. Normally, I was like, hi, Jensen. I was like, did I just turn into like what? Hi, Jensen. Like, where did that come? I don't know where it came from, but that was how I started it off.
Hi, Jensen. Thanks for taking.
Dude, what is that? Hi, Jensen. What is that, bro? Like, that was also like, this is why it's kind of cringe watching this back now. But anyway, let's get to it.
Hi, Jensen. Thanks for
Cookie Monster. It sounds like the Cookie Monster. Oh my gosh.
Taking my question. My name is Amit. I run.
Hanging out with you guys is really fun, actually.
So that was the first interruption. Right? So I'm like, all right, let me get through this. My name is Amit. He's like, hanging out with you guys is fun. I don't know why he did that at that moment. I don't know if he knew me and he knew like he wanted to take this question. There are some people saying that he knew you and like that's why he was more friendly and he wanted to take the question. There's other people saying that he was just being. I have no idea why he interrupted right there. But look, now I have to react. I have to like follow through and like I have to be able to, you know, keep it going and keep the vibe okay.
Thanks for taking my question. My name is Amit. I run.
Hanging out with you guys is really fun, actually.
We're having fun too. This is we are living in the greatest time to be alive with a company that is pushing the limits at every level. It is fascinating every morning that I get to wake up and Analyze your company. I run a YouTube account next.
So I think that already, on his interruption, I followed up with it is really fun because we get to talk and analyze, the greatest company in the world. So I think maybe that already got him to respect how I answered the interruption to keep the flow a little bit more friendly and less formal.
And my audience is primarily retail investors. Now, my business has exponentially increased over the past 5 years because your company has exponentially increased, and there's just a lot of news to cover every single day. And
we brought a lot of retail investors into the world.
So that was actually a good interruption. That one, I was really happy when he said that because I was like, oh, like warming up a little bit, I was like as soon as he said that, because he also has to feel comfortable enough to interrupt me. And again, he's Jensen. He can interrupt anyone he wants. But the point is, like, the fact that he wanted to make that statement right there was good because it means he's like on board now with what the question possibly will be aligned with, which is this concept of retail investors, given I introduced that's who my audience was.
Yeah, and a lot of retail investors have, quite frankly, created generational wealth because of trusting in your vision.
Thank you.
See, and then he says, thank you. So again, we're talking about buttering it up before the question, right? So people are like, oh, you took too long to get it out there. Well, first of all, it's 48 seconds and we had 3 interruptions right here. But I think all interruptions were followed with something that got the conversation to feel more friendly. And then when he said thank you, he was acknowledging that the affirmation of the retail investor changing their life because of trusting in Nvidia, which I think it's set up the ability for me to take a little bit more time to ask the question.
I do a live stream every morning in the morning and in the afternoon.
Okay, so now this was the part that I hated the most. I did not want to say I do a live stream every morning. That was stupid to say. I wanted to say on Nvidia earnings, I do a stream and we have thousands of people across the world that join because I wanted to make it very hyper specific to, hey, when we stream about your company, when we do a show, when we cover your company, lots of people join. I got interrupted 3 times, so I kind of lost a little bit of my groove, even though we kept the conversation going. And I ended up saying I do a stream because I thought maybe in the heat of the moment, that would be the segue for me to be able to say that we do an earnings stream as well. In reality, that's too long-winded. You don't need to say that. But that part I was annoyed by. And then the other part I was annoyed by was this. Let's listen to this part one more time.
Well, because of trusting in your vision.
Thank you.
I do a live stream every morning in the morning and in the afternoon.
Okay, so this was the part I hated. I do a live stream every morning in the morning. That was the part where I was annoyed. I was like, you just said in the morning. Then you have to say in the morning again. I kind of lost my words right there. So he's like, no, I do a stream. I didn't have to say I do a morning stream in the morning. But that was the only hiccup of the question that I was really annoyed by. Again, I can't do anything about it, but that was kind of stupid.
Wealth because of trusting in your vision.
Thank you.
I do a live stream every morning in the morning and in the afternoon, talk about the market. We also talk about Nvidia every day. When you guys have earnings, we have 25,000 people across the entire world get on one stream to listen to you talk for an hour. Every quarter for the past couple of years, you guys have seemed to beat and raise expectations. Expectations that are very hard to beat and raise. And sometimes Wall Street recognizes it, sometimes it doesn't. My question is more philosophically, how do you deal with the pressure of running the world's largest company, a company that a lot of people are saying should be larger than what it is today, and being able to continuously beat those expectations, knowing that it's not just the average bank that owns your stock, but it's the average retail investor who really does believe that this company has a lot further.
Okay, I'll play his response in a bit, but it's a pretty long response, and he goes in a variety of directions. But that was the extent of the question. And the reason I'm being so hypercritical here is because this is what I do, right? Communication is what I do. So it's not about being insecure. It's not about being scared. It's about this is like game tape, right? You have to watch the game tape. You have to microanalyze it at a very high level. If I can critique other podcasters like I did in the past with their, let's say, subpar interviews with very big guests, then I should be able to critique myself. And I should be my biggest critic if I mess up. So, but that was the only hiccup I really felt. The only hiccup was that whole I do a morning stream because I'm not like, what do I look like marketing myself here? Like, again, my whole philosophy is give, not take. So I don't need to promote myself there. It was a segue to get to the Nvidia stream phrase that I wanted to say, but I lost my wording. And so it came out like that and it was kind of awkward. But But outside of those like 10 seconds, I think the actual question was good as the SPY hits 690. Why does the market always go up when I start ranting, dude? It happened last Sunday. I think the question was good, and I think the foundation of it was friendly enough to get Jensen into his zone to actually answer the question. But I do think it's important to be hypercritical of it. Now, the people that said it was glazing, I was like, I don't know what you want. Like, yeah, I'm gonna glaze the freaking 9th richest guy in the world who has created massive amounts of wealth opportunity. This entire bull market over the past 3 years would not have happened without Jensen. I'm like, I think it's also about like Jensen Huang is not going to be here one day. And like the fact that I was privileged enough to be able to ask him a question, like, yeah, I'm gonna give the guys flowers. Like 20 years from now, I'm not going to look back saying, oh, I asked Jensen about Taiwan. I'm going to look back and saying, oh, I asked Jensen, how does it feel like to be a CEO that has the entire world's GDP on your shoulders? And how do you deal with that? Like, and if that requires a bit of quote unquote glazing, like, okay. But I just think that's such an elementary form of analysis when we're talking about like the life cycle of what my brand represents for that question. You know, if I was some Bloomberg reporter that studied Taiwan, that's a whole different, but like I'm a retail investor. So as David says, boring guy's question. And to be fair, it was a boring question for a lot of people. I'm sure there's a bunch of people in that audience that didn't care about me asking what does it feel like to deal with the pressure, but they care about stupid shit. They care about Nvidia H200 is going to China, and there's nothing Jensen is going to say that's different. Like all those reporters were stupid in my opinion in terms of the question they asked, because what can he say? It's up to the CCP. Like, and he already said everything the day before in the first press Q&A. So what do you want? Like at this point, you're just fishing for him to say new things that you might be able to get a headline on, that you might be able to get clicks on, like the Reuters guy did with the Trump connection. I mean, some of these questions were just so embarrassing. I'm like, I'm not going to ask an embarrassing question. I'm going to ask a question that acknowledges how much he's done for us. And in a world in which everyone's concerned about H200s going to China, that no one knows exactly when or how that's going to happen, including Jensen. And if he did, he damn sure is not just going to tell you. Like that question to me is not as valuable as a question about what it means to build a company. Davis says, I never glaze a CEO like that a bit. You glaze me though, Davis. I don't know what you mean by that, but no, in general, I do think the question hopefully resonated with the masses more than like a super specific question about the technology. But yeah, that's it. I think the two takeaways were, again, give more than you take. S&P getting a little red candle right there from 690, and sometimes good things happen to you. And then when you get the opportunity, you got to step up and, outside of those 15 seconds where I think I made a hiccup, I think take advantage of the opportunity. And hopefully that sets up for a future conversation with Jensen one day. But I think the analysis of like the moment is really important, and who you are as a brand is really important. Every Bloomberg reporter wanted to ask about China, even after you could tell visibly. Jens asked Tanner and Jose, he was annoyed by the 9th question about China. Oh, there was towards the absolute end. He was like, all right, we have one more question. It better be good. And they gave it to some lady, and some lady's like, Jensen, you're not going to like this, but I have to ask about China. And Jensen literally says, okay, who has another question? And he looks around. And he ends up giving the lady her question, but he takes a pause and he's like, dude, can we get a real question? Like, he was just so annoyed. And so that's another reason why I think you have to read the room right there and see what type of question actually was meaningful in that context. Icy says, talking to Jensen is literally like talking to a world leader at this point, if not more so, because the global economy is pivoting on this one company at the moment. Yeah. No, I agree. I think it just needed to be more meaningful than now. But anyway, that's what we got. That was the question. Hopefully people enjoyed it. In terms of like how I think about the moment now, I kind of put it in my pocket and move on. I feel like it was a cool moment. It was awesome, but I don't want to think about it anymore. So this is probably the last time I want to like talk about it or psychoanalyze it. Like, it happened, it was cool, and hopefully the next step is something deeper than just a question. But it was really cool. I mean, like, Jensen, Karpflad, got to talk to these guys. Elon's next. We got to see if we can talk to Elon. But obviously a long form podcast would be more fun and make it very exciting as well. All right, his response. Let's listen to that as well.
Well, first of all, I don't do it by myself. I have I've got an amazing team around me, and they help shoulder the responsibility. There's no question that Nvidia today has great influence in the world's technology industries, the supply chains, and the end markets. But what comes with that also is great responsibility, and we take it very seriously. And of course, one of the things that we could do, of course, one of the primary things we could do is to build the best technology the world's ever seen. And by doing so, not only do we stay relevant ourselves, all of our partners continue to succeed, but we also ensure that AI advances in a way, that continues to scale. If AI continues to get smarter, we'll use it for, we'll be able to use it more productively. That continues to scale. If we drive the cost down, that continues to scale. If we drive energy efficiency up, that continues to scale. And so all of that comes along with technology, and that's our first responsibility. The second part of it is to make sure that we have a rich ecosystem of other companies that are benefiting from this industrial revolution, which is the reason why I'm always on stage with a CEO Sunday. Isn't that right? And every single day. Today I was on stage with Roland Bush, who's the CEO of Siemens, and we're partnered with Siemens across a whole bunch of different sectors of their software. They're the largest industrial software company in the world, and they're just about in every single factory and every single industry. And we're working together to bring AI and revolutionizing how factory automation is done altogether. Everything from acceleration of software to physical AI to AI physics to omniverse digital twins. The work that we're doing there is really broad. And so we need to, the second part of our responsibility is to bring everybody along, and our partnerships with Snowflake and ServiceNow, Palantir, Cadence, Synopsys, Siemens, you name them. We want to make sure that everybody comes along. And so I think the resilience of the industry is going to be stronger if we're not singular, but somehow this network of ecosystems around the world is moving along with the technology. And so there's a couple of different things that we do, but in the final analysis, we have to keep doing our job and keep beating the quarter and raising the quarter.
Thought it was a great response. He had a lot of different directions to that, but at its core, he said we have to keep doing our job. Notice the lack of selfishness in two areas. Number one, Jensen says it's not me. I don't do it by myself. So immediately his first thing is like, you can't give me all the credit. You have to acknowledge the team that is behind Nvidia. And then number two, he says we have to bring everyone together. If we want this to work, everyone has to win in this industry. Dude, this guy, he's not saying a peep, but his comments in this chat are incredible. So Jensen is humble, unlike you. Yes, exactly. But we have to bring everyone along for the ride to push AI forward. And, this is a team effort to make this happen. I thought it was a great answer. And I personally think he enjoyed answering that question. And again, I just think there's a time and place for everything. And I think maybe that was, the question where it was a better time and place to be able to ask. So big talk from Amit's bed. Well, that's fair. Technically, it's his bed. Two beds here, guys. There's two freaking beds. It's not one. But yeah, look, it was a cool moment. I think it was fun. It was a great way to start off 2026. I didn't expect that to start off the year like this, but that's what we got to do. And again, I really do think it comes back to giving more than you take. I don't get that moment. I don't get that opportunity if I don't have a connection. I mean, life is all about connections, right? It's not what you know, it's who you know, more than anything. And Nvidia new low of the day. In order for it to be a who you know game, you have to be willing to offer value unconditionally, always, to people that you think maybe one day can give it back to you without the expectation of them giving it back to you. And I think that's why it ended up working out. So that's what we got. Before asking the question, you should have rang the cowbell for 2 seconds. Izzy, thanks for the super chat. I don't know who needs an explanation, but you did a great job. So did Wolf. Yeah, I think Wolf's question was good. The thing about Wolf's question is I think it was lacking a little bit of personalization. Even though it was a good question, right? He's just like, what can we expect in the future? It is a bit broad, and I think that's where Jensen, you know, is probably tired of answering questions. He's like, okay, what to expect in the future? I don't know. Like, you'll find out, right? Like, I don't think that question warranted a response like that. I think Jensen could have answered it in a different way, but it's always your fault if you're the interviewer, right? You always have to take accountability. And I think there's a little bit of context personalization, which I spent a lot of time setting up. But again, I really do think it helped to get to the question and get a good answer versus just saying it like that. So that's how this ended up happening. Google 326, S&P once again around 690. Wow, it's almost 12 o'clock. Okay. Well, hopefully this makes up for no market open yesterday. And Nvidia is still down 2%. IWM very close to all. Again, this is obvious rotation out of large caps to small caps outside of Amazon and Google that I guess are getting some love. But small caps up 1%. Nvidia down 2%. SoFi, are we up a little bit on SoFi? 27.29, that's up 1%. And Nebius, a little bit of a break above 100. All right, cool. That is it. That is it for the stream. There will not be a close today. I will be back tomorrow in the open. Doing 2 things today. I'm going on a hike with Davis in some trail in some park. I don't even know where we're going, but we're going on some hike. So that'll be fun. Excited for that. And then I'm having dinner with Triple V tonight, which should be fun as well. Then we'll be back for tomorrow, then fly out tomorrow afternoon. And we're back on Sunday Futures. Yeah, we should be back for Sunday Futures. We should be good to go. That's pretty much it. Dude, I hate you guys so much. No, it's not Brokeback Mountain. It's not. Is that the name of the mountain, bro? Oh my gosh. I hate you guys so much. That's a cute date. Dude, it's hiking with your boy. Like, you gotta do stuff with your friends, you know? But yeah, that's what I'll be doing today. We'll be back tomorrow for the market open. It's another movie you haven't seen. Well, yeah, it's Red Rock. That's what it's called, Red Rock. It should be fun. It should be fun. So yeah, no close today. Again, I don't think there's anything crazy happening today. We don't have any earnings. Yesterday just had a lot of news with what Trump was saying. That's why the markets are reacting like crazy. But today there's nothing. And tomorrow's Friday. Yeah. So tomorrow we get jobs, we get Supreme Court, and we get is that it? Yeah, jobs and Supreme Court. Those should be the 2 big things as we end up the week. All right, word of the day. Let's do that. We missed word of the day yesterday. I've been there many times. I'm excited for it. I haven't ever been on a hike in Nevada. Atlanta Fed GDP now 5.4%. What are these guys smoking? They're not getting 5% GDP during a shutdown. 5.4 versus 2.7. Did we grow that much in Q4 that even with a shutdown, they're estimating 5.5%? If that's the case, earnings are going to be crazy. If Q4 is 5.4% GDP, I mean, earnings are going to be phenomenal, but I don't believe that we're doing 5.4%. We got jobless claims today, which was 208 versus 212 expected. We get freaking non-farm payrolls tomorrow. So that's going to be a bigger one for tomorrow. That's crazy, bro. 5.5%. It's a real estimate from Atlanta Fed. I just wonder how they're going to get to that estimate. Dude, on January 5th, it was 2.4. Today's January 8th. They went from 2.4 to 5.4. Sorry, 2.7 to 5.4. Evan just tweeted it. In 3 days, they went from 2.7%. Look at that candle to 5.4. It's almost like it's hard to believe that's even real. But if we get it, obviously it'll be important. Can you share your Instagram? Yeah, I'll share my Instagram again in the chat. I've been posting a bunch of behind the scenes. So if you guys want to follow me on the gram, you can follow me there. Link it right here. I like Instagram. I mean, I've been having fun posting on it. It is kind of weird though, because now everything I'm doing in life feels like content. I was like, oh, I could Instagram this. And like, that's kind of annoying. But it's also like, that's kind of what happens when you're on Instagram, right? Like stuff becomes content. Okay, word of the day. I think we know this word. We've seen this word before. Ubiquitous. Present, appearing, or found everywhere at the same time. Once the technology matured, it became ubiquitous, so common that people forgot how revolutionary it once felt. A sharp word for anything that quietly takes over the world. Obviously, AI has become very ubiquitous throughout the ecosystem, and Nvidia and AMD only furthered that feeling over the past week. But the market doesn't care. The market does not care right now. Amit, I have 270 covered calls on AMD January 16th. What would you do? I think you meant to say 207, not 270. If you had 270, you'd be fine. 207, I'd let it ride. I mean, worst case, if it gets there, you can roll. You're probably up on those. You can buy them back if you're up like 70, 80%, given they expire in a week. Maybe that's the safer route to go if you think AMD is kind of forming a base around this low 200s and it could pop anytime soon. So I probably would buy them back. Not being greedy to think like Nvidia falls or AMD falls below 200. Which hopefully, you know, maybe these AI names are bottoming out a little bit more. All right, that's it. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it. The glazing has been pretty ubiquitous in that hotel. Hope everyone's doing well this week. I'll be back tomorrow. We'll be back to regularly scheduled programming Sunday night, getting into next week. And yeah, Nvidia 184, low of the day, down 2.5. Hopefully it doesn't lose that level. But even if it does, you got to start asking yourself, why is certain stuff running and certain stuff not running, and if it's sustainable or not. And I think over the coming weeks, definitely tomorrow, we're going to get a lot more data that'll help us figure out exactly why that's happening or not. All right. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it. I'll see you guys on the market open tomorrow. Bye, everybody. Have a good one.